Chapter 998. Oh my god! Temptress is back in the racing circle. Am I seeing things? I'm her #1 fan. In the spectator stands, there were already people who gripped their companions' shoulders in excitement and shook them with guffaws. Temptress is back. The atmosphere reached its climax in an instant. Of course, other than Temptress, there were also people talking about Yun Jian. Who's that girl who calls herself Yun Jian? What right does she have to compete with Temptress? Other than SS back then, I'm not convinced by anyone. Yeah, who's that girl called Yun Jian? How dare she compete with Lord Temptress of the racing circle? Get out of the racing circle. That's right, Yun Jian, get out of the racing circle. After the voices of reverence for the demoness rang out, another voice soon reached the peak. It meant that Yun Jian should get out of the racing circle. Ever since the match between SS and Temptress, any racer who competed with Temptress would be scolded by the fans of the two teams, telling them to get out of the racing circle, saying that they were unworthy of being a racer. Wait a minute, for example, this kind of sound was like the wind and clouds were surging. At the moment, Yun Jian, who was spurned and asked to leave the racing circle by the audience, was wearing a helmet to prevent accidents. The helmet could save a racer's life in some accidents, so the regular racing channels would usually let the racers wear it. Sister Jian, go easy on me later. I haven't played this game for 2 years, but don't let me lose too badly. At least give me some face. Huh. Temptress winked coquettishly at Yun Jian and teased with a chuckle. Tonight's racing competition was international, so the organizers would provide their own sports cars. Of course, the quality of the sports cars provided by the organizers would not be bad. To be fair, the 2 sports cars provided by the organizers were of the same brand and model. In other words, the racers could only win with their own skills. Let's rely on our own abilities, Yun Jian said with a slight smile. Haha, we can go to the starting track and get ready. Siren wasn't angry. She laughed heartily and drove the Bentley sports car provided by the organizers with Yun Jian. They slowly drove from the inspection station to the track. It wasn't until Yun Jian and the demonic woman drove out of the inspection station that some of the staff members, standing in the same place, began to discuss with disdain. TSK, who does that girl think she is? Let's just rely on our own abilities. Did she really think that she could win against the demoness? Does she think she's an SS? Demoness is just giving her some face. She really thinks she's a divine racer. Can she beat Demoness? This is simply daydreaming. Just as the crew members were discussing Yun Jian, an alluring witch, they saw 2 Bentley sports cars stomping on the accelerator and speeding away from the starting point on the other side of the track with the referee's gunshot. If one wanted to distinguish which Bentley was in which Yun Jian was sitting, one only needed to look at the color of the car. Yun Jian's car was black while Seductress's was silver gray. Just as they sped out of the starting point, Seductress' silver gray sports car was 1 step ahead of Yun Jian. Seeing this, the staff members who were talking about Yun Jian's arrogance grew even more excited. However, the discussion stopped abruptly midway. In the next second, the staff members were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Chapter 999. Before Yun Jian and Seductress stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped away, the people in the spectator stands were almost going crazy. Such voices could be said to have penetrated the whole venue. Seductress will win. Yun Jian, get out of the racing circle. Faced with such aggressive voices, Guxian, who was still standing in place, and Shan Tiansheng, who was still standing in place and had not yet prepared for the race, looked at the scene in front of them with a terrible expression. After all, Yun Jian was with them, especially Guxian. Guxian had already regarded Yun Jian as his own sister. When he suddenly heard Yun Jian being cursed by everyone present, Guxian's expression was the worst. His own sister was being cursed and asked to get out of the racing circle. As her brother, he certainly felt bad. In addition to this, Guxian was also very worried about Yun Jian. After all, Seductress was once the king of the racing circle. It could be said that except for the legendary SS, Seductress had never lost to anyone. Therefore, under such circumstances, it was normal for Guxian to be worried. Yun Jian's racing skills were amazing, and Gu Xian had already experienced it. But compared to Seductress, at this moment, the two Bentleys driven by Yun Jian and Seductress had already sped out of the finish line. Almost at the same time, Seductress' silver gray Bentley took the lead and rushed out of the starting point. As a result, the screams in the venue became even more obvious. "Ah, Seductress will win! Yun Jian, get out of the racing circle!" Gu Xian's hands were tightly clenched together. Listening to the people around him belittling Yun Jian with such words, as her brother, he was really, for the first time, Gu Xian felt powerless. When Gu Xian lowered his head and raised it slightly, a frightening scene suddenly appeared in the eyes of everyone present. The two sports cars had arrived at the turning point one after the other. However, just as the two sports cars reached the turning point, the black Bentley that was lagging behind suddenly made a sharp turn. In the next second, it stepped on the accelerator, just as the silver-gray sports car, driven by the demoness in front of it, began to brake. It was usually unrealistic to overtake on a curve, because it was very dangerous. Even when driving, it was very dangerous to overtake on a curve. Moreover, when racing, almost all of them were sprinting at full speed. When they encountered a curve, not only did they not step on the brakes, they even had to step on the accelerator to speed forward. Such a person was simply one of a kind. However, Yun Jian was one of them. It was also this crazy action that made countless audience members hold on to the railing tightly and raise their but slightly. They widened their eyes and looked at this scene in shock and horror. Did she not want to live anymore? Chi. When they reached the curve, the black Bentley driven by Yun Jian stepped on the accelerator like a flash of lightning. In the shortest time, the car used the highest speed to fiercely overtake the silver-gray Bentley that had slowed down. After overtaking the silver-gray Bentley, the black Bentley driven by Yun Jian turned a corner and finally disappeared from everyone's sight. However, it appeared on the large screen in the spectator stands. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Soon after, there were screams from the audience that were boiling with excitement. "Oh my God! She actually overtook Demoness? How is this possible? Other than SS, Demoness has never been overtaken, but today she actually..." The voices that were cursing Yun Jian to get out of the racing circle suddenly disappeared. What followed was a shocking scream. At this moment, whether it was the group of staff members who had mocked Yun Jian, Dan Tianxing, Gu Xian, all the audience in the spectator stands, or the racers in the lounge, all of them widened their eyes. This scene was almost unbelievable. Chapter 1000. In spite of it, Yun Jian was already driving the black Bentley sports car ahead of Alluring Witch by leaps and bounds, while the crowd was howling with excitement. But Little Demon was not to be outdone. After Yun Jian took a huge lead, she stepped on the accelerator to catch up. At this moment, Little Demon had a very wild feeling. She felt that she had found her initial joy and passion for racing. Sure enough, racing with an SS car was the most exciting. There was no other. Little Demon was full of passion at this moment. The audience in the spectator stands were so enthusiastic that they could not control themselves. Although Alluring Demoness and Yun Jian's race was interrupted midway, none of the racers objected when they saw Alluring Demoness making a comeback. But the scene that no one expected was that Yun Jian actually took a huge lead in the beginning of the race. Furthermore, this was under the circumstance that the Demoness had rushed out of the starting point first. Gu Xian saw that Yun Jian had overtaken Little Demon. It was as if he had seen hope. At this moment, Gu Xian's heart was filled with excitement. Yun Jian will win! Yun Jian will win! Gu Xian looked at the battle in front of him and shouted unconsciously. After shouting twice, Gu Xian realized that no one around him was paying attention to him. Even when they heard his voice, the people around him glanced at him coldly. But Gu Xian did not stop shouting. He elbowed Dan Tianxing in the stomach, and then forced Dan Tianxing to shout with him. The strength of a few people could sometimes drive the whole audience. Gu Xian's shouting also stirred up the atmosphere. Gradually, when they saw that Yun Jian had overtaken Little Demon, some people also shouted with Gu Xian. For a moment, the audience in the spectator stands were divided into two factions. The audience was shouting and screaming at the same time. The atmosphere had reached its climax. However, at this moment, someone pointed at the screen and shouted loudly, "Look! There!" This person's voice was quickly drowned out by the shouts of the audience in the spectator stands. However, everyone present saw a scene that scared them out of their wits. At this time, the sports car driven by Yun Jian and the witch was about to reach the finish line. Although Siren was not as fast as Yun Jian, she followed closely behind Yun Jian's black Bentley. Seeing that the seductive woman's sports car was about to overtake Yun Jian's sports car in terms of speed, just as the audience's hearts were tightly clenched and their blood was boiling. However, the black Bentley suddenly stepped on the brakes. The sports car was originally moving at a terrifying speed of over 200 kilometers per hour. If he suddenly slammed on the brakes, the car and the people inside would be forcefully braked by the inertia and be sent flying. "Is she crazy?" a member of the audience yelled in horror. At this moment, a shocking turn of events suddenly occurred. The moment the car braked, the black Bentley began to slide to the left. At the same time, due to inertia, it spun and slid crazily. It spun twice as fast as the original speed of the sports car and was flung away. With this toss, the hearts of everyone present almost fell out. Was he going to screw up? Everyone present could not help but think so. However, just as they thought so, they saw the black Bentley driven by Yun Jian bounce to the finish line at the speed of a spring after being flung away. When it reached the finish line, the black Bentley spun a few times on the spot and suddenly came to a stop. Yun Jian won. Siren reached the finish line 10 seconds later than Yun Jian. However, at this moment, no cheers could be heard. The people present could no longer express their inner feelings with the word shock. Why did the way the black Bentley used just now feel so familiar? I've seen that move in SS car before. She's SS. Someone suddenly reacted and pointed out the mystery. Hearing this person's words, everyone present stood up in fright. Yun Jian was actually SS. Chapter 1001. Those who had looked down on Yun Jian, including those who had insulted Yun Jian and demanded that Yun Jian get out of the racing circle, when they heard about the race between Yun Jian and Siren. Those who had checked the station and said that Yun Jian was daydreaming if she thought she could beat Siren. Guxian, Dan Tianxing and the others. Everyone's eyes widened in horror as they stared at the scene in front of them in astonishment. The whole place was silent. Everyone had the same expression on their faces, stunned. At this moment, no one's expression was normal, especially those who had looked down on Yun Jian. They were all dumbfounded. Were they seeing things? The girl who looked like she was under 18 years old was actually SS. But at this moment, they had no choice but to believe it. Today was an international racing competition, and the people who came were all racing fans who had watched countless races. Many of the spectators were fans who had watched the SS race back in the day, and they were familiar with the SS driving skills. Wasn't Yun Jian's move the same as SS' usual move during the final sprint? As racing fans, they couldn't be wrong. After a moment of silence, the crowd began to roar and seethe. SS' appearance was even more shocking than the return of the top racer Siren. And the most shocking thing of the day was that SS, who had been famous in the racing circle, but had never shown her face, was actually a young girl. But if SS was so young now, then 2 years ago how old was she? 13? 14? Oh my God! Everyone present was so shocked by this that they almost stopped breathing. At this moment, the driver's seat of the black Bentley parked at the finish line opened. Yun Jian's flawless face appeared in front of the crowd's eyes. SS. On the grandstand, someone led the crowd to shout at the top of their lungs. The atmosphere was 100 times hotter than before. Yun Jian frowned slightly when she heard the orderly cheers. Her delicate face made people feel even more excited. Not long after, the demoness silver-gray Bentley also braked at the finish line. She got out of the silver-gray Bentley in a rather handsome manner. Then she swung the car door and closed it. The demonic woman laughed bluntly before she walked up to Yun Jian. She reached out her hand and stroked her hairline. Then, she said to Yun Jian as she walked, "Sister Jian, Your driving skills are still amazing even after 2 years of absence. Haha. You've improved. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and commented. Yun Jian never flattered people, but whatever came out of her mouth was definitely the truest words. The demoness driving skills had indeed improved. If it was 2 years ago, she would have been left far behind. Of course. Demoness was not bashful from Yun Jian's compliment. Instead, she admitted it openly. As they spoke, Yun Jian and Alluring Witch walked out of the racetrack side by side. Just as they exited the track, a large group of reporters who had already brought their cameras swarmed toward them, all of them dashing toward Yun Jian. Hello. May I ask if you're SS who suddenly disappeared 2 years ago? Do you know that Demoness disappeared from the racing scene after you disappeared? Can you explain why you left the racing scene back then? May I ask if you'll make a comeback? Why didn't you show your real face before? Chapter 1002. The reporters were like a swarm of bees. If they were not held back by the organizer's security guards, they would have probably pounced on Yun Jian and interrogated her with all sorts of questions. It was fortunate that an international racing competition like this had people from the organizer's side, keeping these terrifying reporters in check. After all, these reporters were quite fearsome in order to get first-hand headlines. In the past, any racer who was slightly famous in the international racing competition would be swarmed by these fearsome reporters. Therefore, to control the reporters as much as possible, the organizer had sent security guards to stop them. In spite of it, there were just too many reporters. Even with the security guards deployed, they could not stop all of them. The venue was in a state of chaos, but to Yun Jian, it was as if nothing had happened. She merely squinted her eyes. Hello. Can you please answer my question? Will you reappear in the racing circle as SS? Excuse me. If the people who were yelling for Yun Jian to get out of the racing circle at the spectator stands were intense in their tone, these reporters were 100 times more frenzied than them. Sister Jian, let's leave from the back door of the racetrack. Alluring Demon went up to Yun Jian and told Yun Jian softly with a nod. Amen. Yun Jian nodded and answered Alluring Demon. SS, are you leaving? You'll return to the racing circle, right? You. The reporters panicked when they saw Yun Jian turn around without saying a word. Yun Jian ignored them and turned slightly to the side. After a pause, she turned around again to show the reporters her back. The corners of her beautiful lips curled up slightly, and a bright light flashed through her eyes. In the next second, her melodious voice rang out. I'll only answer one question. Yun Jian paused for a beat before her voice trailed off. What does it have to do with you whether I race or not? Are you my parents or my parents? Why are you so nosy? Yun Jian's words were not polite at all. The reporters at the scene originally thought that Yun Jian could really answer a decent question. But Yun Jian's words meant, wasn't she indirectly saying that the reporters were meddling in other people's business? Although Yun Jian's words didn't sound elegant at all, the racers in the distance almost couldn't help clapping and cheering when they heard her. This group of racers was usually afraid of being chased by reporters, but standing in a group of reporters, although they were very disgusted by the reporters' questions, they couldn't fly into a rage. However, Yun Jian's actions had completely vented everyone's anger. Seeing Yun Jian turn around and walk away after saying this, the group of reporters froze in place and surprisingly did not chase after her. The reporters who were standing still saw the look in Yun Jian's eyes and were a little shocked at the moment. That young girl's eyes could be so cold. It was as if they dared to chase after her, they would immediately die on the spot. After receiving Yun Jian's cold glare, the reporters all stood still in a daze and didn't chase after her. The people in the spectator stands were stunned. Everyone was dumbfounded. One had to know that when a racer finished a race, this group of reporters would chase after the racer like crazy in order to get first-hand news. Chapter 1003. While the reporters were dumbfounded and too scared to follow them, Yun Jian was already led away by Temptress through the back door of the racetrack. Haha, those damn reporters kept pestering you, Sister Jian. They're usually pestering me, but Sister Jian, your gaze just now must have scared them to death. Just as Temptress led Yun Jian out of the racetrack's back door and came to a flat area illuminated only by a single light, she guffawed loudly. This did not match Temptress's seductive image at all. Temptress was seductive, but her seductive image was only shown to outsiders. She was never strict with Yun Jian. Yun Jian gave a curt nod, but it was obvious from the slight curvature that she was replying to Temptress. Yun Jian had always been one to speak her mind. Honestly, it was a headache for her to face the reporters. It was fine if she did not say anything, but once she did, the reporters would back off. Sis. Just as Yun Jian and Temptress arrived at the racetrack's entrance, a male voice rang out. They were at the racetrack's entrance, and the loud cheers from the spectator stands could be heard from here. It could be seen that another exciting racing performance was about to begin. It was not as intense as Yun Jian and Temptress' race, but the atmosphere on the spectator stands was already boiling. In comparison, the racetrack's entrance seemed a little lonely. There was only one spot of light that shone down, making it feel a little desolate. In spite of it, Yun Jian did not find it desolate. She tilted her head slightly toward the source of the voice and saw Gu Xian waving toward them. There were a few buddies from Gu Xian with him as well. Dan Tianxing was the leader. It was almost Dan Tianxing's race, but he seemed to be more excited to see Yun Jian than the race. When Yun Jian heard Gu Xian's voice, she stopped in her tracks. When Temptress saw Yun Jian stop, she stopped as well. Phew! Yun Jian! You! Dan Tianxing was still panting when he ran over. He took a deep breath to adjust his emotions. Yun Jian, are you really SS? Dan Tianxing finally asked the question that Gu Xian and the rest wanted to ask. Just as he asked the question, however, Dan Tianxing paused and said, No, I don't mean anything else. It's because I admire Temptress and SS very much so. I am, Yun Jian answered naturally. Yun Jian did not answer whether she was SS or not when she was interviewed. Dan Tianxing and the others chased after her was to ask for an answer. Yes or no? Although Dan Tianxing and the rest were prepared, they were still stunned at this moment. Gu Xian put his arm around Dan Tianxing's shoulder naturally and said in a boastful manner, Of course, I finally know why Master Corentin calls Sister S. And why Master Corentin wants Sister to be his disciple. What? Master Corentin? Little Xian, are you talking about the world's most famous top-notch mechanic, Master Corentin? Master Corentin wants to be Yun Jian's disciple? This. Chapter 1004. Corentin was also well known in the racing circle. What was that supposed to mean? Corentin did not race, but why was he so famous in the racing circle? It was because Corentin's modified racing car was the best in the world. Any racer would have a grand goal or wish, which was to get a sports car modified by Master Corentin. Therefore, Corentin was famous in the racing circle. Moreover, Corentin had a quirk that everyone in the industry knew. It was impossible to get a sports car modified by Master Corentin, even if you had the money. It also depended on his mood. If he was in a bad mood or did not like you, he would not modify you even if it cost him his life. This was mentioned before. Of course, the reason Corentin could be so arrogant was because he had his own skills. He had the capital to be so arrogant and brash. Therefore, when they heard that someone like him was begging to be Yun Jian's disciple, Shan Tianxing and the rest were shocked and fearful. Huh, that old man Corentin is still begging to be Sister Jian's disciple? To Shan Tianxing and the rest, Corentin's begging to be Yun Jian's disciple was terrifying, but Alluring Demon was only impressed by his perseverance. As for Corentin wanting to be Yun Jian's disciple, it was just a normal thing. Sister Jian, that old man still hasn't given up. Are you going to take him in? Alluring Demon crossed her arms lazily and looked at Yun Jian with a grin, her eyes twinkling with a peculiar glint. No, Yun Jian retorted. Shan Tianxing and the rest shuddered again when they heard Yun Jian's straightforward rejection. That was the internationally renowned mechanic, Master Corentin. If it were any of Dan Tianxing's men, they would be very satisfied if Master Corentin were to meet them, let alone acknowledge them as his master. What about Yun Jian? Why? Yun Jian, why didn't you take Master Corentin in? If Yun Jian took Master Corentin as her disciple, would it not be a piece of cake for him to modify a sports car? Dan Tianxing asked in confusion. Because Yun Jian tilted her head and looked at Dan Tianxing. She narrowed her eyes slightly, and there was a beautiful luster in her eyes that no one could underestimate. Because he's not qualified. In the next second, Yun Jian's soft voice rang out. When this voice rang out, Dan Tianxing and the others were completely stunned. What did he mean by Master Corentin wasn't qualified? If even Master Corentin wasn't qualified, then who else in the world was? However, after Yun Jian finished speaking, she smiled faintly, turned sideways and took a step forward. Little Xian, your sister is an SS, the king of the racing circle. That's true, but Master Corentin's strength isn't just for show. For her to speak of Master Corentin like that, isn't it a little? Dan Tianxing said hesitantly. Little brother, you're really flattering that old man Corentin. He's nothing to Sister Jian. Temptress winked at Dan Tianxing and the others before she followed Yun Jian with a chuckle. What Temptress said surprised Dan Tianxing and the others. That was not the end of it. When Guxian heard that, he could not help stepping up to tell his buddy, Dan Tianxing. Tianxing, I used to think that Master Corentin was the best mechanic in the world, but ever since I drove the Ferrari sports car my sister modified, the Ferrari sports car my sister modified is twice as fast as Master Corentin's modified sports car. Master Corentin's modified sports car was originally twice as fast as a regular sports car. That was already the limit. However, a mechanic who could double the speed of Master Corentin's modified sports car. There was probably no one else in the world who could do that. Chapter 1005. While Dan Tianxing and the others were still in shock, Guxian had already caught up with Yun Jian and told her that he had to return to the venue to watch Dan Tianxing's race. He asked Yun Jian if she wanted to go back with him. Yun Jian had just caused such a big commotion. Of course, it was not suitable for her to go back now. Thus, Yun Jian curved her red lips and smiled faintly. I won't go. Give me a call after you finish watching the race tonight. With that, Yun Jian patted her trouser pocket gently and smiled. She placed her phone in her trouser pocket. Okay. Guxian nodded. Dan Tianxing's race was not over yet. As a brother, he had to be there. Otherwise he would be too unbrotherly. After Yun Jian finished talking to Guxian, she left with Demonis. Yun Jian came to Maryland and Country M to check on the Rongyao Company's recent situation. Coincidentally, Guxian could not leave tonight, so Yun Jian went to Rongyao Company with Demonis. Rongyao Company was located in the largest downtown area in Maryland. It occupied a vast area and was the tallest high-rise building in Maryland. It was already nighttime and almost dawn. However, the downtown area in Maryland was the busiest area in the vicinity. Even now it was still crowded. There were still people working overtime in Rongyao Company. When Demonis followed Yun Jian into the Rongyao Company, the employees who were working overtime looked at Yun Jian with surprise and suspicion. The Demonis was the CEO of the Rong and Yao Company. This was something that everyone in the company knew. But what was going on now? How could the CEO of their company single-handedly support Rongyao Company, from an unknown company to the current CEO of one of the top 10 international corporations in the world? And she was actually following behind a young girl, who looked less than 18 years old? What was going on? However, before the people present could think too much, the siren followed Yun Jian and walked past the group of workers who were still working overtime. Good evening, CEO. When the Demonis passed by them, the group of employees greeted her politely. However, when they saw Yun Jian, they all opened their mouths but didn't know how to address her. It wasn't until Yun Jian and the Demonis were far away that the group of staff members began to chatter endlessly. Who is that girl? Why does it seem like our company's CEO is following behind her? It's probably a coincidence. Who do you think our CEO is? The CEO probably just happened to be following that young girl. The few female staff members who were standing at the same spot were very jealous of Yun Jian, for being able to make the demoness follow behind her. It was as if she was ordering her own subordinates. People's jealousy was very scary, so these female staff members began to gossip again. Just as they reached this part of their conversation, they were either hinting or comforting themselves that it was just a coincidence that Demoness was following Yun Jian. However, they heard Demoness speaking to Yun Jian from afar. Sister Jian, the company's going downhill right now because of Hagi Company's suppression. The rest of the words did not register in the female staff members who stood at the same spot. However, the few female staff members present heard the two words. Sister Jian? The CEO of Rongyao Company was calling the girl sister? What did this mean? Did it mean that the girl's status was higher than Demoness? Chapter 1006. Suddenly thinking of this, several female staff members suddenly covered their mouths and looked at Yun Jian's fading figure in disbelief. Oh my God! Could she be the legendary founder of the Rongyao Company, the chairman of the Rongyao Company? Since the establishment of the Rongyao Company, the chairman of the Rongyao Company had never shown his face. So when they heard Demoness call Yun Jian's sister, the group of female staff members guessed it. The expression of the people present could not be described with the word frightened. They seemed to have seen the founder of the Rongyao Company, the legendary chairman. For a moment, the group of female staff members even forgot that they were secretly criticizing Yun Jian and despising Yun Jian in their hearts. At this moment, Yun Jian and Demoness had already taken the elevator to the office on the 25th floor. The 25th floor was where the offices of all the executives of the Rongyao Company were located. Demoness' office was also on the 25th floor. As soon as they came out of the elevator, Demoness took Yun Jian directly to her office. After hearing Demoness say that the company's development was going downhill recently, Yun Jian was neither happy nor worried. She asked faintly, Hagi Company? Yes, Hagi Company is also one of the top 10 international companies. But Hagi Company's international status is slightly higher than our Rongyao Company. The reason is because Hagi Company is a company passed down from ancient times. After thousands of years of business development, its foundation is deeply rooted. Recently, the chairman of Hagi Company has been suppressing us, so the company's sales have been greatly reduced recently. Demoness was not vague at all when talking about serious matters. She explained to Yun Jian word by word. However, just as she said this, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Because at this moment, Yun Jian and Demoness had already arrived at the door of Demoness' office. Yun Jian, on the other hand, saw two figures in a luring demon's office. When Demoness saw the two figures, one standing and one sitting in her office, she frowned deeply. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows slightly. Under normal circumstances, Rongyao Company had guards at the door, so outsiders could not enter. However, it was almost midnight now, and basically everyone in the company had gotten off work, except for some people who were still working overtime. Therefore, there were no guards outside the door, and there were still people in the company. The door was open, so it was not strange that someone could enter. However, the strange thing was that this person actually found Demoness' office. Mayor. Demoness frowned and said in astonishment. Once Yun Jian heard a luring witch's shout, she knew who the two people in the office, one standing and one sitting, were. The man standing was Mayor, the chairman of Hagi Company. The woman sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed was Mel's sister Maggie. Hagi Company was the company that had been suppressing Rongyao Company recently. At least now that Rongyao Company was in Demoness' hands, she could not compete with Hagi Company. Haha, my little Demoness, I finally caught you. Mayor glanced at Yun Jian, then turned to look at Demoness, and said generously, What are you doing here? Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Demoness glared at Mayor fiercely. In fact, based on the current situation, Demoness, as the chairman of Rongyao Company, was being suppressed by Hagi Company. Mayor was Demoness' strongest opponent. Puffed. However, Mayor was amused and laughed. His handsome face added a trace of the CEO's dignified demeanor. Of course we are here to laugh at you. Mai raised her head arrogantly and looked at Demoness. Mai glanced at Demoness, then glanced at Yun Jian. Seeing that Yun Jian was wearing clothes from a street stall, She laughed for a while, then mocked her. Chapter 1007. Yun Jian did not plan to speak, but she merely raised a brow when the topic shifted to her. Hagi Company was one of the top 10 international corporations, and its international status was incomparable to ordinary companies. In fact, Hagi Company and Rongyao Company existed side by side. The only difference was that Rongyao Company had only risen in recent years. Hagi Company, on the other hand, was an industry that had been passed down for generations. In comparison, Hagi Company's international status was perhaps a few levels higher than Rongyao Company's. Hagi Company was considered a strong competitor to Rongyao Company. As for Mare and Mai and I, they were siblings, and Mare was the CEO of Hagi Company, holding 20% of the company's shares. He could be considered one of the biggest shareholders of the company. Yun Jian had planned to see why Mare and Mai and I were here, but she did not expect Mai and I to target her. She narrowed her eyes and stared straight ahead. Mai and I had thought of teasing Yun Jian when she saw her standing quietly on the side, especially since Hagi Company and Rongyao Company's CEO, Temptress, were arch-enemies. Looking at Yun Jian's attire, Mai and I had thought of mocking her, which was why she had mocked Yun Jian so viciously. Just as she finished mocking Yun Jian, Mai Ni's gaze was fixed on Temptress. To Mai and I, Yun Jian was probably just an insignificant employee in the company, perhaps a poor beggar who came out of nowhere. Mai Ni's purpose of belittling Yun Jian was to suppress Temptress in terms of aura. It was not that she had seen Yun Jian. In Mai Ni's eyes, Yun Jian was just a stepping stone for her to suppress Temptress. Before Yun Jian could get angry, Temptress was already fuming when she heard what Mai and I said. How dare she call Sister Jian a poor beggar? If Sister Jian was poor, would there be any rich people in the world? You're not welcome here. Get lost. Scram as far as you can. Although the demoness usually looked seductive, she was very strong when she was fierce. At this moment, the demoness was walking toward Mare and Mai and I in a pair of pointy stilettos. She picked up a mop and was about to chase them away. She looked like a shrew. "Io, my little demoness, don't be like this. Mare is still young and doesn't know any better. If she said something she shouldn't have, don't lower yourself to her level." Mare turned to the side and grabbed the mop that Siren swung at him. "Brother, how dare she enter Rongyao Company with that outfit? Even if Rongyao Company is not as good as our Haji, Rongyao Company is still one of the top 10 multinational companies in the world. Even such a person can come in. The threshold of your Rongyao Company is too low." Mai and I placed her hand softly on her cheek. Even her brother Mare was ashamed to hear her scornful look. Temptress was even more furious when she heard that. She yanked the mop back from Mare's hand and was about to fling it at Mai and I. It was then that Yun Jian's voice rang. "What does it have to do with you whether the threshold of our Rongyao Company is high or not? I think a beggar on the street is better than a certain woman who sprays Dior cologne all over." A woman who sprays Dior cologne all over? Mai and I froze. Was she not referring to herself? Chapter 1008. Mare and Mai and I didn't even notice the words Rongyao Company. Yun Jian wasn't complaining about the Dior perfume. She was cursing Mai and I in a roundabout way, saying that she was worse than a beggar on the street. In fact, most women knew how to spray perfume. For example, seductive women also sprayed perfume. There were many types of perfume. Some people like simple and elegant scents. Seductive woman, for example, sprayed a simple and elegant perfume, even though she was seductive. As for Mai and I, she sprayed a very strong perfume. Of course, everyone had their own preferences. Yun Jian wasn't complaining about Mai Ni's Dior perfume. It was just that Mai and I had coincidentally sprayed Dior perfume. At the same time, everyone present could tell that Yun Jian was implying that Mai and I was worse than a beggar on the street. This was purely a scolding without any vulgarities. Moreover, Yun Jian emphasized the woman who sprayed Dior perfume. There were only 4 people present. Yun Jian and Mare didn't spray perfume. Seductive woman sprayed a faint perfume. Yun Jian could tell that it wasn't a Dior perfume with one sniff. Then there was only one person present who fit the description. That person was Mai and I. Therefore, my niece's face instantly darkened after Yun Jian said that. Mai and I had been spoiled since she was young. She had always treated Yun Jian as a beggar. Now that she heard Yun Jian say that she was worse than a beggar, she exploded on the spot. What did you say? You actually said that I'm worse than a beggar. Ah, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Mai and I flew into a rage on the spot. She picked up a teacup from the coffee table and threw it at Yun Jian. Mai and I was a typical rich young lady. She was the young lady of one of the top 10 international corporations, Hagi Company. Therefore, she had a very delicate personality. Usually, no one would even say anything bad about her. There were only a bunch of people who flattered her. Therefore, when Mai and I heard Yun Jian belittle her to be worse than a beggar, she felt as if she had been greatly insulted. Especially when Mai and I thought that Yun Jian was a lowly person. The feeling of being despised by a lowly person made Mai and I explode instantly. Go to hell. Mai and I grabbed a teacup and threw it at Yun Jian. Not even Mare was able to react to this sudden turn of events. However, when Mare turned to the side to stop his sister, Mai niece's teacup had already been thrown viciously at Yun Jian. Inside the teacup, there was also a bowl of cool tea water. Mare's expression suddenly changed, but it was too late for him to stop her. The teacup that was filled with cooling tea leaves had already spun in the air and was about to splash on Yun Jian when the cold tea leaves splashed onto her. Alluring Demon's gaze dimmed, but she did not do anything else because she knew Sister Jian's ability. In spite of it, Mare's heart clenched when he saw the scene. He could feel that Alluring Demon cared a lot about Yun Jian, and he did not come here to go against Alluring Demon. Instead, if the tea had splashed on Yun Jian, and the teacup had smashed on her as well, she would not have been able to escape. Would it not be the end of him and Alluring Demon then? Just as he thought about it, Mare saw a horrifying scene. Mai and I who stood beside Mare saw it as well. With a bang, Yun Jian suddenly took a step forward and spun the teacup in the air for a few seconds. Before the water in the teacup could pour completely, she suddenly raised her leg and kicked the teacup back at Mai and I. Before the water in the teacup could pour, Yun Jian's kick was forceful, but it was just right. Both Mare and Mai and I were dumbfounded. However, just as the two of them were stunned, Mai and I suddenly felt a wave of ice-cold tea soak her body, and a large teacup was smashed towards her forehead. Chapter 1009. Initially, the teacup was headed straight for Yun Jian, but Yun Jian's high kick just now had landed on the teacup. She kicked it back at Mai and I without spilling the tea. Not only was Mai and I soaked and sticky from the cold tea in the teacup when she was hit by the teacup, but more importantly, her forehead swelled up from the impact. For a rich young lady like Mai and I, she had never experienced such excruciating pain since she was young. Tears were about to flow from the impact, and at the same time, a deep hatred for Yun Jian welled up within her. The urge to kill Yun Jian on the spot took root in Mai and I. Aha! Go to hell! Mai and I held her forehead that was hit by the teacup and screamed at Yun Jian. Halfway through her sentence, Mai and I endured the pain and told Mare in a tone that sounded like she wanted to tear Yun Jian into pieces. Gidge, how dare this damn woman hit me? Kill her! I want her dead! Ah! In spite of it, Yun Jian, who had retracted her leg, crossed her arms and looked at Mai and I in disdain before snickering softly. Since when can a rabid dog like this enter my Rongyao company? Chase her out! Her words were directed at Alluring Witch, but her gaze was blatantly on Mai and I. At this moment, Mai and I was like an unreasonable little beggar. She looked pathetic and comical. Sister Jian, I'll chase these two rabid dogs out right away. Alluring Witch grinned and walked to Mare with ease. Seeing Mare supporting Mai and I in such a sorry state, the demonic woman sneered and provoked Mare. Don't worry. What are you waiting for? Take your sister and get out of my territory. Mare's heart skipped a beat when he saw Witch's impatient face, but he tried to explain his sister's behavior just now. Witch, don't be mad. My sister was just... Gidge. Who are you helping? It hurts so much. I'm going to die from the pain. Mai and I screamed and wailed. Yun Jian frowned when she saw Mai and I still screaming. She could not stand it anymore, so she went up and dragged Mai and I out of the office by her collar. I'll help you if you don't leave. Yun Jian did not care that my and I was still struggling as she dragged her all the way from the 25th floor to the first floor. Yun Jian's action frightened Mare and my and I, but Mare was held back by Witch, so he could only watch his sister being dragged to the first floor by Yun Jian. Mare was afraid of hurting Witch, who was blocking his way, so he dared not do anything. There were plenty of employees working overtime on the first floor, especially the female employees, who had gossiped about Yun Jian just now. When they saw Yun Jian dragging something out of the elevator, while holding someone's collar, they were spooked. Although the female employees suspected that Yun Jian was the director of Rongyao Company, they did not have sufficient evidence. Moreover, how old was Yun Jian? Therefore, this suspicion was quickly ruled out by the crowd. When they saw Yun Jian dragging my and I out of the elevator and tossing her out of the door, the employees were dumbfounded. How could this young lady be so fierce? And who was the person she was dragging? It was my and I, the daughter of Hagi Company's director. How dare she? Chapter 10:10. When the staff came back to their senses, they heard Yun Jian's cold voice. Everyone at the scene was scared silly. That was the daughter of the chairman of Hagi Company. Even if she was the CEO of the Rong and Yao Company, she would have to think twice. After all, as the daughter of the chairman of Hagi Company, my and I was undoubtedly a dragon among men. It could be said that offending my and I was going against the whole Hagi Company. On the other hand, Rong and Yao Company was only on par with Hagi Company. In terms of international status, Rong and Yao Company was even worse than Hagi Company. So when they saw Yun Jian treating my and I like this, the staff who were working overtime in the company were stunned. My and I was still in pain from being hit by the teacup just now. She endured the pain and looked up when she heard Yun Jian's cold words. She was just about to look up at Yun Jian angrily and say, "Do you dare?" When she met Yun Jian's sharp murderous gaze, my and I trembled. The severe pain made her not dare to look at Yun Jian directly. "Little siren, let's talk nicely. Don't be like this. It's easy to hurt our friendship." Mare didn't know what to do. He couldn't bear to touch Siren, but he also couldn't bear to see his sister being bullied by Yun Jian. In the business world, Mare did use Hagi Company's name to suppress Rongyao Company, but Mare had to admit that he had his own selfish motives. When he first saw Siren, he fell in love with her. So not long ago, he started to pursue her crazily, but Siren didn't care about him at all. Mare admitted that he fell in love with Siren at first sight. Seeing that the soft approach didn't work, he decided to use the hard approach. In the company, Mare used his position as the president of Hagi Company to suppress Siren. Of course, he didn't go too far. He didn't dare to be ruthless. He didn't want to drive his wife away and never talk to him again. But even so, Siren ignored Mare's love. So recently, Mare was most troubled by this matter. "Get lost." Siren glared back at Mare. But to Mare, this stare was exceptionally refreshing and alluring. Mare even thought the stare was cute. "Little witch, I'm sincere to you." Before Mare could finish his confession, my niece's scolding voice rang out. "Brother, you're crazy. You actually like her. Her people bullied me like this. Are you going to avenge me or not?" My and I said. Her fear of Yun Jian disappeared. She glared fiercely at Yun Jian and spat out even more insolent words. "Just you wait, damned woman. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're the chairman of Rongyao Company? Just you wait, I'll get my dad to kill you." My and Mare's father was the chairman of the Hagi Company. However, as soon as my and I said that, she heard a female voice behind her. "CEO, so you're here." This CEO was undoubtedly a shout to the demoness. Yun Jian turned slightly to look at the girl who looked to be around 16 or 17 years old, who had suddenly appeared. The girl was Siren's subordinate, and also a member of the Kosha mercenaries. Her code name was Fox. Fox was Tanuki who delivered the Ferrari sports car to Longmen City for Yun Jian back then. Fox looked like a young girl, but she looked exactly the same as Tanuki. They both had the same baby face. She was actually 25 years old. As for the Fox, he was working under the demonic woman. Fox had just caught sight of Siren when she shouted, drawing Mare and my niece's attention to her. Then she saw Yun Jian. She was stunned but called out to Yun Jian right in front of Mare and my and I. Chairman, you're back? The word chairman took Mare and my inai by surprise. Fox was Siren's subordinate, and also someone who had come into contact with the mysterious chairman of Rongyao Company. Chapter 10-11. You're the director of the legendary Rongyao Company? My inai widened her eyes at Yun Jian in disbelief when she heard Fox's words, her pupils constricting. My inai looked like a downtrodden beggar as she stared at Yun Jian in disbelief and asked. My inai did not even care about the excruciating pain from being hit by the teacup, as she asked Yun Jian with a terrified gaze. Fox, who was standing on the stairs not far away, glanced down at my inai in disdain before snorting and speaking to my inai on behalf of Yun Jian. Sister Jian is the director of Rongyao Company, of course. Fox was different from Alluring Demon. Fox was an assassin from Kosha mercenaries and had only started working under Alluring Demon later on. Alluring Demon was the daughter of a bankrupt wealthy businessman whom Yun Jian had rescued back then. Alluring Demon was not an assassin or a secret agent, but she had mastered some basic self-defense skills. Yun Jian had saved Alluring Demon because she had taken a liking to Alluring Demon's business talent. Alluring Demon knew that Yun Jian was slaying God. It was Yun Jian who had rescued Alluring Demon when her family was in dire straits, so Alluring Demon was loyal to Yun Jian. Moreover, Alluring Demon was in charge of Rongyao Company now, so her status in the international arena was extraordinary. Alluring Demon's skills could take down a bunch of ordinary people, but she was nothing compared to high-level assassins and secret agents. After all, Alluring Demon was only good at business. She was once the daughter of a wealthy businessman and had been pampered since she was young. As for self-defense skills, she had learned them later on. This was also the reason why Yun Jian had sent Fox to assist Alluring Demon. Fox was from Kosha mercenaries, so his ability could take on at least 3 high-level secret agents. This allowed Fox to be ranked within the top 20 in the secret agent ranking. Since Fox came from Kosha mercenaries, he knew Yun Jian's Kosha mercenaries and Yun Jian's international status better than the witch. Therefore, Fox was not polite to my inai. Although my inai was the daughter of Hagi Company's chairman, if Hagi Company really wanted to fight with the Kosha mercenaries, the Kosha mercenaries could make Hagi Company disappear from this world forever. Fox's words shocked Mag and Mel even more. After that, my inai remembered the tone in which the fox had spoken to her. Who the hell are you? You're just a dog following behind your master. How dare you speak to me in such a tone? Do you want to die? Yun Jian was the chairman of Rongyao Company, so she shouldn't lose her dignity. So my inai was a little scared. She didn't dare to be mad at Yun Jian, so she turned to the fox. To my inai, since Yun Jian was the chairman, then she, Fox, was just a dog of Rongyao Company. How dare a subordinate be so arrogant to her? My inai stopped talking. Mel saw this and immediately scolded his sister. My inai pouted after being scolded by her brother. Just as she was about to continue speaking, she caught a glimpse of a fair and smooth hand reaching towards her. In the next second, a slap was heard. My inai only felt that her cheek was hit hard, and she was sent flying to the ground. When my inai recovered from the pain, she just happened to see the owner of that jade hand standing in front of her. Chapter 10-12. Yun Jian walked closer to my inai as she spoke. Seeing his sister get slapped by Yun Jian, Mare was indifferent. That was because a demoness was blocking his way, preventing him from getting close. Yun Jian was already in front of my inai. She reached out and pinched my niece's chin. Suddenly, she tightened her grip and spoke to my inai in a hair-raising tone. Or, you can replace Hagi Company and become history. How about that? The words become history were like a heavy hammer that slammed into my niece's heart. My niece's heart tightened. My inai felt an unprecedented fear. Reality proved that she was quite frightened by Yun Jian, especially when Yun Jian was pinching her chin and speaking to my inai with a slight hesitation. My inai felt that she had never been so scared in her life. However, just when my inai felt that her chin was about to be crushed by Yun Jian suddenly let go. Take your sister and get out of here. Yun Jian kicked my inai. Then she turned her head. The young girl's beautiful face looked neither happy nor angry, but it made Mare's heart tremble. Mare had never seen a young girl like this. Yun Jian was the chairman of Rongyao Company. His Hagi Company's social status was higher than Yun Jian's Rongyao Company. If Yun Jian was an ordinary businesswoman, she would have probably rushed over to Hagi Company and asked for peace. But Yun Jian? What did she say? She said that she would make sure that Hagi Company would never see the light of tomorrow? Was this something that an underage girl would say? Alright, Mare admitted that Yun Jian was not an ordinary person. If Yun Jian was an ordinary person, then were there any geniuses in this world? Just as Mare thought of this, he was already holding his sister's hand. Mayanai had been spoiled since she was a child. Yun Jian's slap just now had completely stunned Mayanai. Mare had just helped his sister Mayanai to her feet, and was planning to leave this place first before coming back to find the demoness. Yun Jian's leisurely voice came from the back of his head again. Tell Matt that if he doesn't want to disappear in the long river of history, he'd better behave himself. If he dares to lay his hands on my Rongyao Company again, he'd better wash his neck and wait for death. Matt was Mare and my niece's father, and Matt was also the chairman of the Hagi Company. Mare had indeed used his status as the president to suppress Rongyao Company, because of the siren. But it was just a superficial suppression. Yun Jian might be in Longmen City, but in reality, the slightest movement among the international bigwigs could not escape her eyes. Yun Jian was also well aware that the person who was stirring up trouble in Rongyao Company was not Mare, but his father Matt. Matt's motive was obvious as well. He wanted to take over Rongyao Company for himself. Mare paused but left in a hurry with his sister Mayanai. Today was definitely the most pathetic day of Mare and my niece's lives. Watching Mare and Mayanai leave in a hurry, the few employees who were still working overtime in Rongyao Company were dumbfounded. Especially Yun Jian's arrogant words just now. Rongyao Company might be inferior to Hagi Company in terms of capital, but Yun Jian had asked Mare to pass the message to Hagi Company's chairman, Matt, with such arrogant words. If he dared to do anything else, he'd better wash his neck and wait for death. Chapter 10:13. It was not my niece's first time wreaking havoc in Rongyao Company. The last few times Mare and Mayanai came, Mare simply wanted to see a luring demon. Mayanai, on the other hand, was here to pick a fight. Therefore, when no one picked a fight with her, Mayanai came to the employees and humiliated them. Even so, the employees dared not make a sound. She was the daughter of Hagi Company's chairman after all. Who would dare to go against her? Unless they were not afraid of losing their jobs. Therefore, the few staff members present were usually very unwilling to see Mayanai. At the same time, they were extremely disgusted with her. They just did not say it out loud. In spite of it, they nearly ran over to clap and cheer when they saw how Yun Jian thrashed Mayanai just now. In spite of it, Yun Jian's domineering image was deeply imprinted in their minds. If anyone mentioned Rongyao Company's chairman next time, they would introduce him to them proudly, telling them how cool and amazing their chairman was. While the employees were still admiring Yun Jian was already walking on the main road of Maryland with alluring demon and fox. Haha, we finally got rid of that annoying Mare and gave that little b** teach Mayanai a good thrashing. Sister Jian, to thank you for your great feat just now, I'll treat both of you to supper. Alluring demon patted Fox's shoulder and guffawed at Yun Jian. Let's go. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Then, the three of them went to the busiest nightclub in Maryland in Country M. Alluring demon ordered generously. When the dishes were served, Alluring demon and Fox reported Rongyao Company's recent situation to Yun Jian. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed as she listened. It was 1 o'clock in the morning when they were done with supper. Gu Xian, Dan Tiansheng, and the others had finished watching the race and rushed over after receiving Yun Jian's call. During the 3-day Labor Day holiday, Gu Xian brought Yun Jian to Country M to watch the race. After spending a night in a hotel in Maryland, Yun Jian bought a plane ticket back to China the next day. Before she left, she also sent an invitation to Siren and Vixen, inviting them to attend the wedding of her mother, Qin Yiru, and Gu Junjian on May 21st. At the same time, Yun Jian also sent out a lot of invitations. using the name of kosher mercenaries to invite many international big shots to Qin Yura's wedding. Of course, for now, everything was being done in secret. Yun Jian returned to Longmen City alone. Gu Xian had already returned to school, so he sent Yun Jian to the airport and watched Yun Jian board the plane before leaving. Yun Jian got off the plane at a place called Yang City near Longmen City. It was already noon when she got off the plane and took a car back to Longmen City. Just as she reached home, Yun Jian saw a tall silhouette standing at the door. It had been a few days since she last saw Ce. When Yun Jian saw Ce, she ran over with a smile. Like a teenage girl, her heart skipped a beat as she threw herself into Ce's arms. Qin Yura was not at home. She must have gone to chat with Mrs. Yang. Just as Ce pulled the girl into his arms and was about to speak with his magnetic voice, he was interrupted by one of the three heads that popped down the stairs. Wow, Ce, Gidge is snatching a girl in broad daylight. Shame on you. Chapter 10:14. Xiao Yunju shook his head as he spoke, as if he was reciting an ancient poem. Xiao Yunju had already started his first grade, so he had a budding understanding of some things. Of course, Xiao Yunju did not know where to use the phrase snatching a girl. It was only because he had learned these words in the past few days that Xiao Yunju was able to use them. Children were often the most innocent when they were not in school, but once they stayed in school for a long time, they would naturally understand some things. However, not long after Xiao Yunju spoke, the mischievous Duanli interrupted. No, that's not the right word. Duanli even cleared her throat as she spoke. She had completely turned into a little teacher, and then said very seriously, "It should be like this." Ahem. In broad daylight, under the clear sky, Big Brother Ce hugged Big Sister Yun Jian, who had just returned home, and did something shameful. Xiao Yunju's words might not have caused such a big misunderstanding, but Duan Li's words made people's imaginations run wild. Originally, when Yun Jian had jumped into his arms, Ce had, of course, hugged her symbolically. How could he not hug the woman he loved when she jumped into his arms? But sure, Duan Li's words. Did she mean that he was hugging Yun Jian and doing something shameful? Xiao Yunju and Duan Li were completely misled by the new words that the school teacher had taught them. Yun Jian and Ce stood at the door, but they could clearly hear the conversation between two of the three little heads that poked their heads downstairs. Yun Jian's cheeks immediately turned red. Ce's face also darkened. Being caught by Xiao Yunju and the other two, Yun Jian had a feeling that she would be teaching the children wrong things. Thus, just as she was about to squirm out of Ce's arms, she was pressed back down by Ce. "You three come down." Ce didn't turn around. He maintained his position of hugging Yun Jian, as he spoke to the three little heads poking out from upstairs. Towards Xiao Yunju and the other two, Ce had never spoken in an angry tone. Therefore, Xiao Yunju and the other two subconsciously believed that their big brother Ce had the best temper. He seemed to be having fun again. Children were very naughty. Xiao Yunju was also a boy. Of course, he was also naughty. Duanli also had a lively personality, so when she heard Ce's slightly gloomy voice, Xiao Yunju and the other two started to hide, as if they were about to be caught by Ce. They kept shouting with all their might. "Wow! Big Brother Ce is going to snatch the kids. Big Brother Ce is going to catch us. We're rocks that don't move. Big Brother Ce can't see us." Xiao Yunju was having so much fun that he was sweating profusely. However, Yun Jian, who was standing downstairs, felt a little awkward. However, nestling in Ce's arms made her feel at ease. It was as if she had really returned home and didn't have to worry about anything else. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile as she hugged Ce with her arms wrapped around him, pressing her body tightly against him. "Your mom went out. Adam and the others also went out. There's only the two of us at home, and the three upstairs." When he mentioned the three upstairs, Ce recalled the scene just now and his face darkened. "Okay." Yun Jian nodded. Then, she wanted to withdraw from Ce's arms. She said, "It's already noon. You guys haven't eaten yet, right? Let's take Xiao Yunju and the other two out for lunch." Yun Jian wanted to squirm out of Ce's arms, but Ce pressed her back into his arms. Adam's injuries have already recovered, Ce said again. Yunjian felt a little strange. Why was he so talkative today? In spite of it, Yunjian did not see the smirk on Ce's lips. The girl's front was pressed against him. A certain twin peaks were pressed tightly against his chest. He could even feel the girl's fullness through his thin clothes. Chapter 10:15. Yunjian's face was pressed against Ce's chest, and her head was just touching Ce's chin. If she didn't look up, she wouldn't be able to see Ce's slightly curved lips. Although she was a little suspicious, she just pursed her lips and listened to Ce's nonsense in the end. Yunjian was still puzzled. Why was Ce, who had never said a word of nonsense before, talking nonstop like a chatterbox today? Coincidentally, Yunjian responded to Ce again. Then she glanced at a clock not far away. She saw that the hour and minute hands were pointing at noon. She interrupted Ce, who was still talking nonsense. Let's take Xiaozhu and the rest for lunch. I'm a little hungry too. As she spoke, Yunjian gently stroked her flat tummy. Ce felt his heart overflow when he heard the girl's soft voice. He didn't even know when he agreed to Yunjian's request. Okay. As soon as he finished speaking, he let go of Yunjian's alluring body. Then, he held Yunjian's hand and walked upstairs. Xiao Yunju and the other two really thought that Ce was going to play hide-and-seek with them. Their laughter spread to every corner of the villa. However, when it came to Ce, he caught Xiao Yunju and the other two almost instantly and brought them downstairs as if they were chickens. Seeing that Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were sweating profusely from playing, Yunjian even used a towel to wipe their sweat. Then, Yunjian held Duanli and Duanya's hands. Ce extended his slender hand and let Xiao Yunju drag him away. Only then did the five of them leisurely walk towards the restaurant. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya each ordered their favorite dishes. Then Yunjian ordered 4 more dishes. 7 dishes, for meat and 3 vegetables. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya ate until their faces were covered in gravy. Eat slowly, Yunjian said softly as she scraped the rice stuck to Xiao Yunju's mouth. Xiao Yunju and the other two weren't wolfing down the food because they were hungry. They were competing to see who could eat faster and who could grab more food. Therefore, they didn't even have time to talk. A child's pleasure was nothing more than these few points. Snatching food from their friends was the most delicious food. However, if it was really a world-class delicacy, no matter how delicious the food was, they would lose their appetite if they didn't have children to fight with. Because she knew from Ce that Qin Yiru and Mrs. Yang went shopping, Qin Yiru also knew that Ce was a responsible child. Therefore, she was relieved to leave Xiao Yunju and the other two in Ce's care. Qin Yiru would probably come back at night. With this in mind, Yunjian thought of taking Xiao Yunju and the other two out to play in the afternoon. Xiaozhu, is there anywhere you want to go? Big sister and big brother Ce will take the 3 of you out to play in the afternoon, Yunjian said with a smile as she rubbed Xiao Yunju and the other two's heads. At this moment, Yunjian's smile was the most sincere. At this moment, the smile on her face was from the bottom of her heart. The amusement park. We're going to the amusement park that we went to last time, Xiao Yunju immediately said to Yunjian. At the same time, he had a look of anticipation on his face. Chapter 10:16. Receiving Xiao Yunju and the rest's expectant gazes, Yunjian pressed her lips together before she smiled and nodded. Okay. Yunjian patted Xiao Yunju's head lightly and urged. Hurry up and eat if you want to go to the amusement park. You won't get to play if you're late. Amusement parks usually closed at 8 or 9 in the evening. Longmen City's amusement park was especially new, so it had been operating later these few days. It would only start to chase customers away at about 10 in the evening. Yay! 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 Xiao Yunju yelled yay thrice in excitement and swiftly dug into the rice in his bowl, stuffing it all into his stomach. Soon, Yunjian and Ce took Duanli, Duanya, and Xiao Yunju's hands respectively, and took the bus to Longmen City's new amusement park. In 1999, there were not as many amusement parks as there were now. Longmen City's amusement park was one of the earlier ones, so people from neighboring cities would come here for sightseeing. Hence, there were more tourists here. Yun Jian and Ce had already brought Xiao Yunju and the rest here before, so they went in quickly after buying tickets. It was May Day, a long holiday for the students. Parents usually brought their children out for sightseeing. Moreover, children preferred places like amusement parks where children could play. So today, the amusement park was full of tourists. Jie, we're going to play bumper cars. Xiao Yunju and the rest hugged each other excitedly as soon as they entered the amusement park. They even led the way to the bumper cars venue. The newly opened amusement park in Longmen City was more upscale, so they could play all the games inside as long as they bought a ticket at the entrance. However, they had to line up to enter the park in order to play the games. Xiao Yunju and the rest stood in line at the venue, holding Yun Jian and Ce's hands respectively. There were a lot of people lining up here, just like a long dragon. Some people were even getting impatient from waiting. Duanli stood on the spot, her little hand held by Yun Jian as she looked around. At this time, a group of young boys and girls about the same age as Yun Jian jumped over the railing. Because there were a lot of people in the queue, sometimes there would be people who cut the queue when the staff wasn't paying attention. Not only did she cut the queue, but when the young boys and girls jumped over the railing, one of the girls stepped on Duan Li's little foot fiercely. Duan Li was still young and her feet were still tender. She was stepped on by one of the girls who jumped over the railing and cut in line. She immediately screamed, "Ah, it hurts." Yun Jian looked over and saw the girl who had climbed over the fence stepping on Duan Li's foot. The girl even rolled her eyes at Duan Li and muttered softly, "F***ck, annoying brat, get away from me." She then tried to catch up with the boys and girls who jumped over the railing and cut in line. Duan Li's frail body contorted from the girl's stomp. She curled up on the ground, tears falling from her eyes from the pain. "Chestnut, what's wrong with you?" Xiao Yunju reacted the fastest, squeezing to Duan Li to check where she was hurt. Seeing that the girl was about to leave, Yun Jian lowered her gaze. She suddenly grabbed the girl's wrist when she was about to move forward with the surrounding passengers. Chapter 10:17. Yun Jian saw Xiao Yunju slowly helping Duan Li up from the ground, so she did not help Duan Li right away. Instead, she caught the girl who stepped on Duan Li and tried to escape. "Jie, it doesn't hurt." Duan Li had been beaten since she was young, so when she saw Yun Jian tugging at the girl's shirt for her, she tugged at Yun Jian's clothes in fear. Duan Li was afraid that Yun Jian would get into a conflict with someone else because of her. When Duan Li was beaten up by her alcoholic father, there was once a neighbor auntie who came out to stop her. In the end, her father beat the kind neighbor auntie as well. Duan Li was still young, but her experience was something that many people could not go through in their lifetime. Duan Li was afraid that she would bring unnecessary trouble to Yun Jian because of her. She was afraid that Yun Jian would be harmed because of her. Due to her childhood, Duan Li might look lively and playful on the outside, but deep down, she was afraid of the world. No one could understand the loneliness and fear that lurked in her heart. Yun Jian lowered her head slightly. She could see that Duan Li's face was pale from being stepped on by the girl just now. A child's feet were soft and tender, unable to withstand even the slightest injury. What was more, when the girl flipped over the railing just now, she had jumped down from the railing that was about half a meter high. Stepping on Duan Li's foot from a height was like standing up and stomping on Duan Li's foot. Not to mention that Duan Li was just a child. Even an adult would turn pale after being stomped on like that. When Duan Li tugged at her clothes and said, "It doesn't hurt," Yun Jian felt something tugging at her heart. "F***ck, are you crazy? I didn't do anything to you. What right do you have to make me apologize for no reason?" The girl with curly hair looked like a gangster. It was nothing to be a gangster. Yun Jian was definitely the gangster among the students in Longmen City. She was now the boss of Zhe Province's top mafia group. As a person, being in the underworld wasn't scary, but the scariest thing was that he didn't admit what he had done. Refusing to admit what he had done was probably something that many people had done before, so it wasn't unusual. But what was disgusting was that not only did this girl not admit it, her aggressive tone made her sound more reasonable. Let go, let go, let go. If you don't let go, I'll call someone over to beat you up. Some people relied on the fact that they were gangsters and knew some ruffians in the society. Then they felt that they knew some invincible people, and their tone was very arrogant. This girl was such a person. She glanced at Yun Jian contemptuously from the corner of her eyes, and struggled desperately to shake off Yun Jian's hand that was grabbing her wrist. The surrounding people had all seen the scene just now. Everyone present felt that Yun Jian was right. Little girl, we won't say anything about you cutting the queue just now, but it's a little unreasonable for you to not apologize after stepping on someone's sister, isn't it? There was a tall and plump young man with a beer belly, who stood at the front of the line. He saw what happened just now and spoke to the girl on Yun Jian's behalf. Before the young man could finish, however, the girl cut him off. F***ck off, fatty. It's none of your business. As she spoke, she turned back to look at Yun Jian. Are you letting go or not? If you don't let go, I'll ask my friends to catch you and beat you up. Do you believe me? Chapter 10:18. The girl was stunned. Just as she was about to speak, she was attracted by the voices of a few young men and women who were squeezing their way to the front. Young Kaidai, what are you doing? Why aren't you coming over? One of the boys, who was taller than the rest, bellowed when he saw the girl who was held back by Yun Jian. Obviously, this girl's name was Young Kaidai. Young Kaidai became even more frustrated after being yelled at by the boy. Her friends had already cut the queue and ran to the front, but she was being held back by Yun Jian and could not catch up with her friends. Moreover, one bumper car could seat two people. Young Kaidai sat in the same car with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was a real hooligan. She was so anxious to catch up with him, because she wanted to sit in the same bumper car as him. In the end, Yun Jian wanted her to apologize. Young Kaidai thought that she was a person with a lot of self-respect, especially after she met her current boyfriend and made friends with many gangsters. She felt that she was very arrogant. Young Kaidai felt that it was impossible for her to apologize to Yun Jian. Come over quickly. There's a B***tch here, who wants me to apologize. Damn it. I haven't done anything to her yet. Young Kaidai was getting more and more frustrated as she was surrounded by people in the queue. She shouted at her friends who had already run to the front. Upon hearing Young Katie's shout, her friends who had already cut the queue all ran back. Yun Jian was standing in front with Duan Li and Duanya, while Ce was standing behind her. Although Ce was tall, he deliberately bent his body and leaned slightly against Yun Jian. That was why Young Kaidai did not see Ce. At this moment, Young Katie's friends had already run back and jumped over the railing one by one. They surrounded Yun Jian and the people in the queue as if they were going to fight. F***ck. Little girl, you look pretty. Are you trying to bully my girlfriend? Standing outside the railing, a hooligan-like boy raised his head and pointed his chin at Yun Jian as he spoke arrogantly. This boy was obviously Young Katie's hooligan boyfriend. However, as soon as the boy appeared, he stared at Yun Jian without blinking. That expression was very unusual. Seeing this, Ce stood behind Yun Jian and hugged her slender waist from behind. You're not going to apologize, are you? Yun Jian's tone was cold. She narrowed her eyes, but the atmosphere around her had changed. Looking at Yun Jian's cold expression, Young Katie's boyfriend felt an itch in his heart. Yun Jian's current appearance was like a cold little beauty. At this moment, Yuhui felt a certain part of his body swell up. He even felt that his girlfriend, Young Kaidai, was tasteless. Hey little beauty, you seem to have quite a temper, Yuhui said as he looked at Yun Jian with a sneaky smile. However, just as he finished speaking, Yun Jian reached out and pulled Young Katie's body. Her other hand slapped Young Katie's cheek fiercely. Slap! Yun Jian slapped Young Kaidai so hard that she leaned against the railing. Before Young Kaidai could explode, Yun Jian stretched out her leg and stepped on Young Katie's foot. In the next second, Young Kaidai screamed like a pig being slaughtered. For a moment, she did not even have time to scold Yun Jian. Yun Jian stepped on Young Katie's foot with one foot. She stomped on young Katie's foot fiercely as she tossed and turned. Chapter 10:19. She paused for a while. Looks like you're enjoying it. Yunjian added. She increased her strength, and at the same time, her whole body was almost on top of young Katie's feet. Young Kaidai was an adult, so of course, she wouldn't be willing to be stepped on by Yunjian like this. She struggled with all her might, but Yunjian slapped her every time she struggled. This scene shocked everyone in the queue, and at the same time, Yuhui and the rest were scared silly. No one expected Yunjian to be so ferocious. Most importantly, Yunjian looked thin and frail, but her current look was enough to make her look like a real woman. Not to mention whether Yang Kaidai could beat Yunjian. Yang Kaidai couldn't even reach out to touch the corner of Yunjian's clothes. Yunjian stepped on Yang Katie's feet, and the weight of her whole body was exerted on Yang Katie's feet. Yang Katie's face instantly turned red, and she was in a state where she couldn't bear the pain anymore. Ah! Yuhui, hurry up and drag this damn woman out. Save me. Yang Kaidai couldn't beat Yunjian, so she waved her arms wildly, trying to grab Yunjian's hair and tear it apart by force. However, Yunjian didn't let her do as she wished. Whenever Yang Kaidai wanted to reach out, Yunjian would directly give her a fiery slap in this narrow space, causing Yang Katie's whole body to twitch. Yuhui and his brothers were dumbfounded by what they saw. Don't girls usually like to pull hair when they fight? Why did it feel different when it came to Yunjian? When Yunjian hit Yang Kaidai, Ce protected Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya behind her, and at the same time, didn't let Xiao Yunju and the rest see this scene. F*CK, little beauty, what are you doing? Hurry up and let go of my girlfriend's hand. Don't force me to hit you. Yuhui saw that his girlfriend was being bullied by Yunjian, and he wanted to do something, but he considered that Yunjian was a girl. Most importantly, Yunjian was much prettier than his girlfriend. Yuhui felt that he really liked Yunjian, and he felt that he wanted to dump his girlfriend and get to know Yunjian. However, if he didn't save his girlfriend, Yuhui felt that he would leave a bad impression with Yunjian. If he didn't even save his girlfriend, Yuhui subconsciously thought that he would leave a bad impression in the hearts of girls. Wanting to act like a man in front of Yunjian, Yuhui went to Yunjian and extended his hand to stop Yunjian from stepping on his girlfriend's foot. Of course, Yuhui wanted to touch Yunjian's soft and tender body when he pulled Yunjian away. Yunjian naturally felt Yuhui's thoughts, and Ce, who was standing behind Yunjian, was naturally very sensitive to Yuhui's actions as he was also a man. Just as Yuhui was about to approach Yunjian, Ce, who was standing behind Yunjian, helped Xiao Yunju and the other two settle down. He didn't even bother holding onto the railing. He lifted his long leg and stepped on the railing with one foot, jumping over the railing from the long queue. That wasn't all. Ce lifted his leg quickly, and after he jumped over the railing, he put both his hands into his trouser pockets, and without even using his hands he kicked Yuhui, who was about to reach out to Yunjian. Yuhui was sent flying by Ce's swift and fierce kick. With a loud bang, he fell to the ground, and Yuhui felt that his internal organs were about to be shattered. Chapter 10:20. Yuhui clutched his internal organs. He felt as if his internal organs were about to be crushed by Ce's kick. This feeling was worse than death. Cough, cough, cough. Yuhui clutched his chest and coughed violently. Jumping over the railing meant that they weren't in the queue. Amusement parks would usually set up a long queue railing. Outside the railing, there was a flat area where there was no need to queue. Yuhui and his group had jumped over the railing to run back to help Yang Kaidai just now. Ce had also jumped over the railing and kicked away Yuhui, who wanted to touch Yunjian. Yunjian's eyes dimmed slightly before her lips curled up. At this moment, she felt warmth in her heart, because he was behind her. Slap. Thinking of Duan Li's feet that hadn't recovered yet, Yunjian gave Yang Kaidai another slap. Duan Li was only a child to begin with. She was still young and was still growing. Places like the back of her feet were tender to begin with. Even Yunjian's feet were soft and tender, let alone Duan Li. So when she thought of what Yang Kai-dai did to Duan Li and refused to apologize, she gave Yang Kai-dai a few more slaps without hesitation. In the end, Yin Jian grabbed Yang Katie's hair and pulled Yang Katie's head in front of her. She didn't let go of Yang Katie's foot. "Are you going to apologize or not?" Yin Jian said and gave Yang Kai-dai another slap. In fact, Yin Jian was already very soft-hearted. According to her character in her previous life, Yang Kai-dai would have already been killed. But now that they were in the amusement park, she didn't want to cause a big commotion. However, to an ordinary person, Yin Jian's action was quite shocking. If it was any other ordinary person, even if they saw their own people being stepped on by someone else and were rejected when they asked for an apology, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Even if the other party was as confident as Yang Kai-dai, they could only give up. What else could they do? He could only admit that he was unlucky. After all, Yin Jian had beaten, scolded, and even asked for an apology. If it were an ordinary person, who would dare to do that? Not only was this an action that could easily cause trouble, but more importantly, to hit a person in front of so many people, even an ordinary person would feel embarrassed. Especially for girls, they had to pay attention to their image. Who would be like Yin Jian? Who would be so unscrupulous? Not to mention whether ordinary people could have the same strength as Yin Jian. I apologize. Please let me go. Ouch, 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 it hurts." Young Katie's hands were held by Yin Jian as she pulled her hair over mercilessly. She was in so much pain that she broke out in cold sweat. How arrogant she was just now was how weak she was now. Young Katie's entire body was trembling violently. At this moment, even the tourists standing around felt a trace of fear. How could such a young girl do things in such a cruel way? I didn't hear it. Just when everyone present thought that Yin Jian would let go after hearing the apology, they heard Yin Jian's cold voice again. The next moment, following Yin Jian's cold voice was a crisp slap. Yin Jian gave Yang Kai-dai another slap. At the same time, she raised her voice, and her tone was even more arrogant that couldn't be ignored. "If you don't apologize to me, I will break your leg." Only then did Yang Kai-dai know fear, and her whole body was trembling. At this moment Yang Katie's heart was roaring. She is the devil. She is the devil. Chapter 10:21. She had clearly apologized. She had already apologized. But what did Yin Jian say? She said she didn't hear it? Could it be that because she said it too lightly, Yin Jian didn't mean it? Yang Kai-dai couldn't help but curse in her heart. How could there be such an unreasonable person in this world? Wasn't Yin Jian lying to her? But Yang Kai-dai forgot. While she was thinking about it, she seemed to have forgotten something. How did she treat Yin Jian just now? How unreasonable was she when she didn't admit what she did to Duan Li? I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please let me go. Let me go." Yang Kai-dai begged desperately. For a girl like Yang Kai-dai, she was arrogant because she had a boyfriend. Yu Hui was a gangster, and knew quite a lot of gangsters. He often fought with others, and even liked to call a group of friends who called themselves brothers. Whenever one of their buddies got into a little bit of trouble with someone else, this group of buddies would all come. Even if it was just a little bit of trouble, they would make it sound like a big deal. Then a large group of people would band together to fight. Yu Hui often did this kind of thing. Of course, this wasn't considered a gang fight. If one really had to talk about it, wasn't a guy like Yu Hui just trying to find some sense of presence in front of girls? Gang fights after gang fights, what was it for? To run in front of girls to show off. But what about girls? Some girls had never been exposed to such things. Then, when they heard a guy like Yu Hui exaggerating and saying that he was as powerful as Superman, they really thought that guys were omnipotent. However, girls like Yang Kai-dai naturally fell in love with Yu Hui. She was even tricked by Yu Hui into thinking that Yu Hui and this group of people were omnipotent. But in the end, if she really met someone like Yin Jian, without the help of her boyfriend, Yu Hui, Yang Kai-dai would probably beg Yin Jian to let her go. This time, Yang Kai-dai really screamed and begged Yin Jian to let her go. She was afraid that Yin Jian would say, "I didn't hear you again." When Yang Kaidai realized that her boyfriend wasn't as powerful as he said, Yang Kaidai could only beg Yun Jian to let her go. Yun Jian only smiled coldly. Then, she swung her hand and let go of Yang Katie's hand. She didn't plan to continue to hit Yang Kaidai. After Yun Jian let go of her hands and legs, Yang Kaidai felt like she was reborn. She was so scared that she crawled along the railing like she was avoiding the plague. Yu Hui's legs kicks legs leg. As for the rest of them, they didn't dare to come up to Yun Jian and see. In the end, Yang Katie's group didn't even bother with the bumper cars anymore. They all ran away like a puff of smoke. Yay! Sister and Si Gij beat the bad guys. Xiao Yunju's cute little hands held onto Duan Li as he shouted. The surrounding crowd was shocked by Yun Jian and Si Yi's skills. After that, Yun Jian and Si Yi brought Xiao Yunju and the other two to line up as usual. Yun Jian also carefully checked Duan Li's leg. Seeing that there was a black patch, Yun Jian carried Duan Li. Although Duan Li's leg hurt, she didn't want to go home. Chapter 1022. Duan Li was carried by Yun Jian. Duan Li was very light, as if she had no flesh on her body. Therefore, Yun Jian didn't feel tired at all. Duan Li had 2 ponytails today, and looked very cute. When Yun Jian carried her, the ponytails would gently touch Yun Jian's skin. However, Yun Jian didn't have any expression of disgust. Instead, she pursed her lips and smiled gently. Si Yi flipped over the railing and stood behind her. Young lady, your boyfriend was so handsome just now. When Yang Kaidai stepped on Duan Li's foot and wanted to leave without apologizing, the surrounding people were all watching the show. Only this young man with a beer belly spoke up for Yun Jian. Now that he saw Yun Jian and Si Yi, this young man couldn't help but say to Yun Jian. This young man with a beer belly was a typical fat man, and his body looked rather burly. He didn't have any other intentions. He just wanted to say something to Yun Jian. Yun Jian also admired people like him, who were willing to help others when they met on the road. When the young man with the beer belly finished speaking, Yun Jian nodded and smiled at him, but didn't say anything. Yun Jian's smile was a tacit agreement to the young man with the beer belly. Si Yi was her boyfriend. The young man with the beer belly seemed to have no one to talk to, so he looked at Duan Li, who was in Yun Jian's arms, Duanya and Xiao Yunju, who was being held by Si Yi. The young man with the beer belly couldn't help but ridicule them. You guys look so young, especially you young lady. I think you look like a 16 or 17-year-old girl. Haha. If I didn't see these 3 kids, I would have thought that you two were a couple from school. The beer-bellied young man obviously didn't believe that Xiao Yunju and the other 2 were Yun Jian and Si Yi. Some people didn't look old. Although Yun Jian and Si Yi looked young, the beer-bellied youth felt that they were old. Usually, when a young couple went on a date or went on a trip, it was impossible for them to bring their younger siblings along, right? If she were to bring her younger siblings along, their parents would have to come along as well, right? Although he couldn't believe it, the beer-bellied young man would rather think in another direction than think in this direction. Yun Jian was stunned when she heard the beer-bellied young man's voice. She was about to say something when the young man interrupted her. However, Si Yi snatched the right to speak. It's not good to keep the child cooped up at home. You should take some time to bring the child out for a walk. This meant that he had tacitly agreed with the beer-bellied youth's words. The corners of Yun Jian's mouth twitched. She wanted to explain again, but Si Yi hugged her slender waist and looked at her lovingly. He said, "Stop fooling around. Hold the child tight." Yun Jian was speechless. She could even feel the naked gazes of the people around her. Ha ha. I can tell that you two have a good relationship. The beer-bellied youth believed Si Yi's words without a doubt. At the same time, he changed from calling Yun Jian and Si Yi a couple to calling them husband and wife. Xiao Yunju and Duan Li looked younger. Whether it was Xiao Yunju, Duan Li, or Duanya, they were thin and weak. They looked like kindergartners. In comparison, Xiao Yunju had grown taller and looked much better. However, he looked like he was 6 or 7 years old at most. If Yun Jian and Si Yi looked older, then it wasn't too unbelievable that they had given birth to Xiao Yunju and the other two at an early age. The beer-bellied man smiled. Very good. CE only revealed a charming smile. It was easy for CE to say something that went against his conscience. Chapter 10:23. In the end, CE actually started chatting with the beer-bellied young man. However, from the beginning to the end, CE was flaunting his relationship with Yun Jian. In CE's own words, he couldn't wait for the whole world to know that Yun Jian already belonged to him, and only him. He absolutely wouldn't allow anyone to have any designs on Yun Jian. The long line actually passed by very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was Yun Jian's turn. Because he still had Duanya with him, CE didn't plan to play bumper cars like the other kids. A bumper car could only seat 2 people, so Yun Jian and Duanya sat in the same car. Xiao Yunju and Duanli were already starting to understand things, so Yun Jian didn't have to worry about them sitting in the same car. CE stood by the side and watched as Yun Jian, Xiao Yunju, and Duanli sat in the same car. They were having a lot of fun. Seeing Yun Jian pursing her lips and feeling happy from the bottom of her heart, CE also felt happy. He stared at Yun Jian the whole time. Even the middle-aged aunties in the line could feel the love in his eyes. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 loved to play bumper cars. Some of the dangerous games in the amusement park weren't suitable for Xiao Yunju and the other 2. So Xiao Yunju and the other 2 dragged Yun Jian along and immersed themselves in the bumper cars game for the whole afternoon. After playing once, they dragged Yun Jian and CE to line up for the second time. As a result, they didn't feel tired at all. When it was time for dinner, Yun Jian and CE brought Xiao Yunju and the other 2 to a restaurant in the amusement park to order dinner. The dishes in the amusement park were generally more expensive than those outside. But even so, Yun Jian ordered a lot of dishes. During dinner, Yun Jian sent a text message to Qin Yiru, telling her that she, CE, and Xiao Yunju would not be home for dinner tonight. Labor Day was a 3-day holiday. Today was supposed to be the last day of Labor Day, so there should be evening self-study at night. However, the weather forecast said that the weather would not be good on the last day of Labor Day, and it happened to be a holiday, so the evening self-study was cancelled. Of course, no one expected the weather to be so sunny today. In this era, it was common for the weather forecast to be wrong. Jia, let's go boating after eating, okay? Yunju asked Duanli and Duanya as he gobbled up the rice in his bowl. Okay. Yun Jian rubbed Xiao Yunju's head. She felt that her brother was getting cuter and cuter. After dinner, the sky had already darkened. Night quickly shrouded the sky, and the amusement park was soon illuminated by neon lights. There were still many people playing in the amusement park. Of course, the boats by the creek were still sailing. It was just that the boats here were charged. Yun Jian knew that as well. CE had just paid for an hour's ride on the pedals. Yun Jian was just about to step onto the boat with Xiao Yunju and the other 2. However, at this moment, she unconsciously saw a familiar face not far away. The familiar person was graceful and elegant. She was holding a boy who was about the same age as Xiao Yunju. They were surrounded by a group of people as they walked over. When she saw the graceful and elegant woman, Yun Jian's eyes immediately locked. How did she meet Gu Xian's biological mother, Hua Yin, here? Just as she was thinking this, Hua Yin also saw Yun Jian. Chapter 10:24. The moment Hua Yin saw Yun Jian, she was stunned. At this moment, Hua Yin was surrounded by more than 10 bodyguards. She looked like a typical rich person. Hua Yin was holding the hand of a boy who was about the same age as Xiao Yunju. It was not hard to tell that the boy was the child of Hua Yin and her current husband, Hu Chaochuan. Hua Yin's current husband was ugly. Therefore, even though Hua Yin was good-looking, the boy she was holding the hand of took after her current husband, Hu Chaochuan. He had a flat nose, a round face, and even his hair was a little bald. It had to be said that the boy was extremely ugly. However, he was dressed in branded clothes. It was obvious that he was a rich man's son. When Hua Yin saw Yun Jian and Ce with Xiao Yunju and the other 2, she was stunned. Hua Yin remembered how Yun Jian had insulted her the last time. Last time, Yun Jian had called her a cheap woman. She had said that she and her current husband, Hu Chaochuan, were dogs and meows. Hua Yin had been waiting for the last time. When Qin Yiru and Ge Junjian got married, she wanted to go to the wedding and show off how sweet and beautiful her life was now, especially now that her identity was different from before. Her husband's uncle was an international business tycoon. Even in the entire world, his status was extraordinary. There was no need to mention it. This was because Hua Yin believed that a person like Yun Jian would never be able to reach that level. Of course, her husband Hu Chaochuan was an example. Hu Chaochuan had followed his uncle and had become an international tycoon. For example, her husband was one of the investors of the amusement park today. That was why Hua Yin was here. It could be said that Hua Yin's son was on vacation these few days. Therefore, Hua Yin had been wandering around the amusement park with her son. As she was wandering around, she bumped into Yun Jian. Hua Yin thought that Yun Jian wouldn't come to the amusement park just to mock her, right? Therefore, Hua Yin held her son, Hu Qixiang's hand, and walked over with big steps. After all, Hua Yin was from a wealthy family. After marrying Hu Chaochuan, she felt that her husband was very powerful. Therefore, she valued her cultivation even more. Hua Yin walked over and looked down at Yun Jian. She was wearing a pair of high heels, so she looked much taller than Yun Jian. I can't believe you guys are here. Hua Yin spoke as if Yun Jian and the others were not supposed to be here. If you can come, why can't I? Yun Jian was not the kind of person who would run away. She looked straight at Hua Yin. Hua Yin was slightly taller than Yun Jian. Now that she was wearing high heels, it could be said that Hua Yin was looking down at Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian stood on the same spot. She did not look up at Hua Yin. Instead, she looked straight at Hua Yin, who was a few meters away. In terms of aura, even though Hua Yin's height was slightly taller than Yun Jian, who was wearing flat shoes, Yun Jian was stronger than Hua Yin in terms of aura and behavior. It was also because of this that Hua Yin hated Yun Jian even more. Because this is my house. Mom doesn't like you guys coming here. I don't like you guys coming here either. So get out of my house. When Hua Yin wanted to say something, her son with a flat nose, Hu Qixiang, who was holding her hand, took the right to speak. As soon as Hu Qixiang spoke, Yun Jian felt it. He was a typical example of being spoiled by Hua Yin and Hu Chaochuan. Chapter 1025. Hu Qixiang had been instilled with the idea that his father was very powerful since he was young. Before he came to the amusement park, Hu Qixiang already knew that his father was one of the investors here. He was only one of the investors, but in Hu Qixiang's mind, this amusement park belonged to his father. Everything here belonged to his family. He could decide who could come and who could not. Even the people who bought tickets to enter could scram out of here if they made him unhappy. That was the idea that Hua Yin instilled in Hu Qixiang. Hua Yin thought the same way too. Although Hu Chaochuan was only one of the investors here, Hua Yin felt that everything here belonged to her family. With such thoughts in mind, Hua Yin often wandered around here when she had nothing to do. She felt that she was superior to everyone else as long as she stood here. This feeling drove Hua Yin crazy. Give it to me. Yun Jian only smiled contemptuously. She did not want to fight for anything. Instead, she reached out her hand to Hua Yin. What? Hua Yin was shocked by Yun Jian's action. She felt that her son, Hu Qixiang, was especially cool when he told Yun Jian to get out of here, because this was her family's territory. He was indeed her son. He knew how to help his mother deal with bad people. Refund the tickets. It's the tickets for the 5 of us. Didn't you want us to leave? We were kicked out before we finished playing. Of course, you have to give us a refund. Yun Jian did not care about other things. Instead, she reached out her hand and asked Hua Yin to give her a refund. Hua Yin was shocked by Yun Jian's action. Wasn't Yun Jian very domineering before? How come today? Why should I give you guys a refund? Hua Yin was infuriated by Yun Jian's bluff. Hua Yin did not lack Yun Jian's ticket money. In fact, the ticket money was nothing to Hua Yin. It was no different from the dust on the ground. However, If Hua Yin really refunded Yun Jian's ticket money on the spot, wouldn't it be very embarrassing? Because we bought tickets, and we haven't had enough fun yet. If you want us to leave, of course we'll ask for a refund, Yun Jian said smoothly. But since you can't give us a refund, we can only continue with the game. Yun Jian continued without waiting for Hua Yin to speak. At this point, Yun Jian called out to Xiao Yunju, Duan Li and Duanya. Xiao Zhu, you three follow Ce Gij to the boat first. Ce didn't appear, but he was watching everything that was happening in front of him. He knew that there were some things that Yun Jian could solve by herself. If she couldn't solve it cleanly, then he would come and clean it up. Ce quickly grabbed Xiao Yunju and the other two as if they were chickens and entered the pedal boat. He Qi, let's go. Hua Yin knew that she could not argue with Yun Jian. She gritted her teeth in anger, but after considering her appearance, she dragged Hu Qi away. Just you wait. It was going to be Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding soon. At that time, Shi Hua Yin would show Yun Jian how rich she was. Compared to her, Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's family wealth was nothing. Hua Yin wanted to show off at Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's wedding. She also wanted her ex-husband to see that the husband she found now was not only richer than him, but more importantly, he also knew how to dote on her. Chapter 10:26. Just as they got on the boat, Yin Zhu and Duan Li snatched the pedals with their tiny feet and stepped on them, having a great time. Ce's long legs were pressed against Xiao Yunju's. Just as he carried Xiao Yunju and the other two onto the boat, Yun Jian nimbly walked into the boat from the shore. Since Hua Yin had left on her own, Yun Jian naturally did not ask her to stay, nor did she say anything. Because it was not the right time yet, she would let Hua Yin be smug for a few more days. Yun Jian would never let anyone who belittled her mother off the hook. Reality had proven that Hua Yin had successfully angered her. As for the next step, she would make Hua Yin pay the price for angering her. Of course, Yun Jian planned to give Hua Yin a heavy blow while preparing a grand wedding for Qin Yiru. Just as Yun Jian thought of this, she had already stepped on the pedals and walked into the boat. The boat was not big and could only seat 4 people. They sat opposite each other in pairs. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanli each took 3 seats. Xiao Yunju and Duanli sat opposite each other, while Duanya sat beside Ce. When Yun Jian walked in, there were no more seats. Xiaoya, let me carry you. When Yun Jian saw this, she planned to walk towards Duanya. She even reached out her hand as she spoke. When Yun Jian walked in, she happened to pass by Ce. Just as she reached out her hand to carry Duanya to sit on her lap, Ce suddenly reached out and pulled Yun Jian over. When Yun Jian was scooped up by Ce like that, the force of his scooping was strong because she was standing in the corridor. It was as if he brought her over directly. Hence, when Yun Jian was pulled over, she lost her balance and sat on Ce's lap. Yun Jian was suddenly pulled onto Ce's lap. Her butt was suddenly pressed against Ce. At that moment, she could even feel a certain part of Ce's body expanding and pressing against her indescribable part. Yun Jian's face flushed red, especially when Xiao Yunju and the other two were still having fun, and did not notice what was happening. It felt as if she was having an affair with Ce. Xiao Yunju and the other two were having fun stepping on the pedals, and did not notice the shocking scene of Yun Jian, sitting on Ce's lap. In front of the 3 children, Yun Jian was blushing. She struggled but was held down by Ce. When Yun Jian struggled, a certain part of the girl's body was pressed against a certain part of his, rubbing left and right. Ce nearly could not hold himself back. Xiao Jian, don't move. Ce's fair and slender hand was placed on Yun Jian's beautiful thighs. Yun Jian was wearing a pair of shorts that ended just below her knees today. Due to the hot weather, her pants were thin. Ce's hand was on her thighs, and a certain part of his body was pressed against her. Yun Jian felt like she had never encountered anything more exciting than today in her entire life. Especially when there were 3 little kids playing around them. When they got off the boat, Yun Jian's legs were still trembling. She admitted that she did not struggle when they were on the boat just now, but she dared not exert all her weight on Ce's thighs. especially when her lower body was pressed against him. It was almost 7 in the evening when they got off the boat. Yunjian planned to bring Xiao Yunju and the other two home. Just as they stepped out of the amusement park, Yunjian saw that Ce had sent Imo's son to pick them up. Once they were in the car, Yunjian saw Ce calling Snow Eagle. Chapter 1027. Once Ce was done, Snow Eagle did not know what was going on, but it had always obeyed Ce's orders. Ce hung up right after Shuang agreed. Yunjian, who was in the car, narrowed her eyes, knowing that Ce was taking revenge for her. Destroying the amusement park's investors' shares was the same as destroying the new project that Hua Yun's husband's company had recently launched. It would at least cause Hua Yun's husband to lose a huge sum of money. It was not enough to ruin his reputation, but it would be enough to give him a headache in the near future. Emosen drove steadily. Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian seemed to be tired from playing in the car. The three of them seemed to have infected each other, as they dozed off in the car at the same time. Yunjian knew that the three of them must be tired from playing today, so she let Ce help her to rest Xiao Yunju's head, while she rested her head on Duan Li and Duan Yes. When they got home, Yunjian moved Xiao Yunju, Duanling Tian, and Duanling Tian back to their respective bedrooms. Yunjian was exhausted after playing for the entire afternoon and night. It was only 8 o'clock when she got home. Although she had to wake up for school the next day, Yunjian was in no hurry to sleep. On the other hand, Hua Yun brought her son, Hu Qixiang, home in a huff and shoved her son to the nanny in exasperation. She was so infuriated by Yunjian that she did not even bother to look at her son as she stomped upstairs. Before Hua Yun entered her husband's study, she heard him talking to someone on his phone. Wu Chaochuan's tone was extreme. "What? Someone important is messing with us. Explain it to me. What do you mean the amusement park plan is going to be ruined? I've invested 1 billion yuan in Longmen City's amusement park. How can it be gone just like that? Find out who did it for me." After shouting his last words, Hu Chaochuan threw his phone away. From the ferocious expression on Hu Chaochuan's face, one could tell that he was in a very bad mood. In 1999, 1 billion was equivalent to half of Hu Chaochuan's family fortune. The project that he had just invested in was suddenly hacked. Moreover, this project had cost all of Hu Chaochuan's efforts. Hu Chaochuan's expression at this moment was simply uglier than if he had eaten dog shit. It was true that Hua Yun was a graceful and elegant woman. However, Hua Yun was not smart. Even though she could see that Hu Chaochuan's face was terrifyingly dark, she still wanted to approach him. "Hubby, what's wrong? Why were you so angry just now?" Hua Yun gently brought a fruit platter from downstairs and leaned over. Just as she walked over and placed the fruit platter in front of Hu Chaochuan pushed it away. The fruits in the fruit platter rolled to the ground and slid far away. "Scram! Did I tell you to come up?" On the surface, Hu Chaochuan appeared to be very gentle to Hua Yun. However, if he really encountered something difficult, he would simply treat Hua Yun as a punching bag. Hua Yun felt that the only thing she could brag about in this life was marrying a rich husband like Hu Chaochuan. Hua Yun wanted to pretend to be a very virtuous wife in front of Hu Chaochuan, so she went to Hu Chaochuan even after she was scolded. "Chaochuan, what's wrong with you? Is there something wrong with your business?" "It's all right, I'm here with you." Before Hua Yun could finish her sentence, Hu Chaochuan pushed her away. Hu Chaochuan, who had called Hua Yun baby in front of Yunjian before, did not even treat Hua Yun as a human when he was frustrated. Chapter 1028. As Hu Chaochuan spoke, he glared at Hua Yun. His behavior was a stark contrast to Hu Chaochuan, who called Hua Yun baby in front of outsiders. Even so, Hua Yun was not mad at all, because Hu Chaochuan was her ATM. If she left Hu Chaochuan now, she was nothing. F***ck. Hu Chaochuan growled and slammed all the books on the desk onto the floor. With this slap, a few books hit Hua Yun's body. One of the books even hit Hua Yun's forehead hard, causing a big bump to form on the spot. Hua Yun clenched her teeth in pain, but she dared not utter a word in the end. The only thing she had left was Hu Chaochuan, because Hu Chaochuan's money was the only thing she could show off in front of outsiders. Therefore, Hua Yun could only endure Hu Chaochuan's violence at home and be an envied rich lady outside. This was Hua Yun's current living situation. The next day, Yun Jian went to school as usual. Once the 3-day holiday of Labor Day was over, Yun Jian's life returned to normal. The 3-day holiday of Labor Day could be considered Yun Jian's last long break in junior high school. Once May was over, the senior high school entrance examination would begin in late June. What awaited everyone in the end was the yearning high school life. As for what kind of school they could get into and which school they would go to, it all depended on the senior high school entrance examination in late June. Jian, sob, I'm getting moldy at home. I can finally go back to school and stay with you every day. I'm so excited. Just as Yun Jian returned to school, Chun Sini pounced on her. Yun Jian did not avoid her, but allowed Chun Sini to hug her. Chun Sini was finally back to school after recuperating at home for so long. To be honest, Chun Sini was the person whom Yun Jian and her friends were looking forward to the most in school. Initially, she thought that she would not be able to meet any other friends other than Lu Fian after leaving Xinjiang town, but she did not expect to meet Chun Sini. There was also Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest. Let go, it's time for class. Although she was a little emotional, Yun Jian pressed her lips together and told Chun Sini nonchalantly, "Hehe, I see. I know you're excited too, Jian." Chun Sini hugged Yun Jian's hand coquettishly. It was only when the morning bell rang that Chun Sini let go of Yun Jian's hand. There was a night self-study session on Tuesday. It was 8 o'clock in the evening. In addition, Yun Jian and the girls were about to take their high school entrance exams. So the evening self-study session was usually dragged to class by the respective subject teachers. In the end, it would even drag on for more than 10 minutes. By the time school was over, most of the day and boarding students from the other grades had already left. Zhang Xiaofeng still had to go to the field for some exercise after the evening self-study session. So Yun Jian and Chun Sini walked out of the school gate first. The night breeze was rather chilly. Chun Sini stayed by Yun Jian's side, holding Yun Jian's hand as they turned a corner to go home. Just as they turned the corner, Yun Jian felt that something was off. "Ha, bros, it's this chick's boyfriend who kicked me hard at the amusement park yesterday." Yun Jian recognized the leader of a group of people who were walking toward them at first glance. The leader was Yang Katie's boyfriend, Yu Hui, who refused to apologize for stepping on Duan Li yesterday. Currently, Yu Hui was leading a group of more than 20 teenagers with Yang Kaidai in his arms. There were also some teenagers who came to watch the show, surrounding Yun Jian and Chun Sini. From the looks of it, it was obvious that Yu Hui and his men were here to cause trouble. Chapter 1029. Yu Hui was indeed here to cause trouble. After being kicked by Ce yesterday, he felt like his internal organs were about to be destroyed. To Yu Hui, he had never suffered such humiliation in his life. However, considering that Ce was too strong, he took his girlfriend, Yang Kaidai, and ran away first. If he couldn't win, he would run away. This was Yu Hui's habit. Of course, he buried yesterday's incident in his heart. After being kicked so ruthlessly, how could Yu Hui let it go? Luckily, Yu Hui asked his brothers to investigate, and finally found out that Yun Jian was studying at Longminizhong High School. Yu Hui was amazed at how powerful his influence was. He was actually able to find Yun Jian's school in such a short period of time. At the same time, he didn't forget how Yun Jian dealt with Yang Kaidai yesterday. It seemed like this girl had some skills too. Hence, Yu Hui took advantage of the fact that Ce wasn't around today to bring his 20 brothers, and planned to intercept Yun Jian here. 20 people against one girl. He didn't believe that they would lose. Yu Hui's group of school hooligans, if they were bullied by anyone, even if it was just a little bit, they would make a big fuss out of it, as if they were going to die. Today, Yu Hui brought 20 people to surround Yun Jian and teach her a lesson. "Yo, Yu Hui, I didn't expect these two girls to be so pretty." "Ah, Haha. The group of 20 hooligans surrounded Yun Jian and Chen Sini in a corner. One of them was dressed like a hooligan and had a yellow mohawk hairstyle. He sized up Yun Jian and Chen Sini from the corner of his eyes. He looked as if he wanted to see Yun Jian and Chen Sini naked. Brother Haitian, it was this damned woman who framed me yesterday. She even slapped my beautiful face until it was swollen. You have to take revenge for your younger sister. Yang Kaidai also stood up and covered her face as she spoke. Looking at Yang Katie's pitiful expression, it was as if she was really the victim. The brother Haitian that Yang Kaidai mentioned was the young man with the yellow mohawk. The young man's name was Wang Haitian, and he was the most powerful one among the 20 or so punks. Yang Kaidai also got to know this group of gangsters, who she thought were very powerful, because she was dating Yu Hui. It was also because of this group of people that Yang Kaidai was so arrogant to the outside world. That was because she felt that she had a backer. Hee, they actually dared to bully our little sister Kaidai. Of course I will help you teach them a lesson. Wang Haitian walked up to Yun Jian and Chen Sini like a ruffian, and sized them up with narrowed eyes. Not only were the 20 over brothers that Yu Hui had brought with him, there were also some people who came to watch the show after hearing that there was going to be a gang fight. The people around them were mostly students. However, when they saw Yun Jian being surrounded by Wang Haitian, Yu Hui and the rest, they all shook their heads and sighed. It seemed like the two girls who were surrounded were done for today. The students around them were not from Yun Jian's school, but from Wang Haitian and Yu Hui's school. Therefore, none of them knew that Yun Jian was Team Monarch/God. At that moment, Wang Haitian was looking at Yun Jian's voluptuous breasts with perverted eyes. So beautiful. There was actually such a beautiful girl in this world. Little girl, are you scared? Hee, if you let me touch your breasts, I'll let you go. How about that? Wang Haitian put forward such shameless words. As he spoke, he even whistled, pretending to be very domineering. How do you want to die? Chapter 10:30. The people standing around had thought that Yun Jian would beg for mercy, lose her face from fright, or hug Chen Sini in fright, and cry out what to do. This was how a normal girl would react when faced with such a situation. But what about Yun Jian? She didn't follow Wang Haitian's words. Instead, she asked Wang Haitian, "How do you want to die?" Are you kidding me? The current situation was that Yun Jian was surrounded by Yu Hui, Wang Haitian, and the rest, and they were about to gang up on her. She was a girl, but not only was she not afraid, she even looked at Wang Haitian and the rest and said such words. Wasn't this asking for death? It was fine if Yun Jian wasn't afraid, but why didn't the girl standing beside Yun Jian have any sense of fear? Chen Sini was standing beside Yun Jian, but just like Yun Jian, she didn't show any signs of fear in front of Wang Haitian and the rest. Hey little girl, don't try to be brave. You won't die if I touch you. I'll touch you gently, and I'll let you go after that. How about that? Wang Haitian was mesmerized by Yun Jian's beauty, and he didn't even have the intention to avenge Yu Hui and Yang Kaidai. At this moment, his entire heart was on Yun Jian. Such a beauty made him want to conquer her from the bottom of his heart. Wang Haitian, I was the one who found this beauty. Why are you the only one who can touch her? Yu Hui saw that Wang Haitian wanted to monopolize Yun Jian, and he panicked. He didn't even care about his own girlfriend, and opened his mouth to say these words. Yu Hui's words made Yang Katie's eyes widen. Yu Hui, you actually had this kind of idea. You even said that you're going to avenge me tonight. You. Don't my baby. I'm torturing her, because I want to avenge you. Yu Hui realized that he had said something wrong, and he immediately changed his words. Although Yu Hui's explanation was rather far-fetched, Yang Kaidai turned around unhappily and pouted her lips. After making an angry face, she didn't say anything else. It was only then that Yu Hui turned his attention back to Yun Jian. Just as Yu Hui turned his head around, he suddenly heard the surrounding students exclaim in surprise. Oh my god, this girl, she actually carries a knife with her. Yu Hui's attention was attracted by the noise. He turned around in surprise and saw Yun Jian pulling out a butterfly knife from her pocket. With a swift flick of her hand, the butterfly knife was caught in Yun Jian's palm. Seeing Yun Jian's proficient posture with the knife, everyone present was slightly stunned. In the next second, they heard Yun Jian's lips curl up. Her red lips moved up and down slightly, and the hand holding the butterfly knife tightened. Then, she pointed the blade of the butterfly knife at Wang Haitian and the others. "Don't talk nonsense. You want to gang up on me, right? Get your weapons and come at me together. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you bunch of trash." The moment Yun Jian whipped out the butterfly knife was enough to send chills down people's spines. After all, she was a girl. How could she carry a knife with her? However, when Yun Jian finished speaking, the group of people led by Wang Haitian were dumbfounded. What did this girl say? She wanted all of them to come at her together? She even said that they were trash? Could it be that she wanted to fight with them all by herself? Was this a joke? Just her alone? Chapter 1031. Yun Jian strode forward. She lifted one of her legs and kicked Wang Haitian's abdomen, who was looking at her wretchedly. Wang Haitian's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian, and Yun Jian's movements were swift and violent. In the next moment, Yun Jian's leg had already kicked Wang Haitian's abdomen. Yun Jian had no intention of going easy on this kick. At the same time, Yun Jian waved the butterfly knife at Wang Haitian's chest twice. In the next moment, Wang Haitian was sent flying by Yun Jian's kick. The moment Wang Haitian was sent flying, everyone turned their attention to him. They saw Wang Haitian fly a few meters away after being kicked in the abdomen by Yun Jian. After Wang Haitian fell to the ground with a plop, everyone realized that Wang Haitian's clothes had been torn by Yun Jian. Yun Jian seemed to have put away the knife on purpose. The tip of the knife didn't hurt Wang Haitian's skin, but everyone saw Wang Haitian fall to the ground. The front of his clothes had been cut by the blade. Wang Haitian's clothes had been cut by the knife, forming a big X. Wang Haitian's clothes were cut into an X shape by the knife. This scene caused everyone present to panic and be stunned. But at the same time, when everyone thought of this, they didn't forget one thing. This X had been cut by Yun Jian with the knife in her hand. This could also be seen from the side. Yun Jian's knife skills were amazing. Just as everyone was thinking this, Yun Jian had already taken a big step forward. Her jade-like legs on the ground suddenly jumped, and she jumped into the air. Then, she lifted her legs and kicked the chests of the two brothers standing behind Wang Haitian. Wang Haitian had just been sent flying. Everyone was dumbfounded. How could they care about anything else? However, at this moment, Yun Jian lifted her leg and kicked the two brothers behind Wang Haitian. At the same time, she waved the butterfly knife, her hands and feet moving in a continuous stream. Following that, Yun Jian wandered among the 20-odd people Wang Haitian had brought with him. Wherever she went, a bunch of them collapsed. In less than half a minute, it was so fast that this group of people didn't even have time to react. The surrounding students who were watching the show saw Yun Jian ruthlessly kick the last one, Yu Hui. When Yu Hui was sent flying, Yun Jian's footsteps followed closely. She waited for Yu Hui to fall to the ground before she ruthlessly kicked Yu Hui's abdomen. Then, the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand landed on Yu Hui's neck. When they recovered from their shock and turned to look at where Yun Jian had passed by, they saw that each of the hooligans who were sprawled on the floor had an X slashed across their chests. This X was so neat that it was as if it was perfectly carved out by a knife. All of this, without a doubt, hinted at how precise Yun Jian's knife skills were. She was so precise that she didn't seem like a middle school girl at all. In just half a minute, she kicked more than 20 people to the ground at the same time, and drew a big X on the front of each of their clothes. This wasn't something an ordinary junior high school girl could do. At this moment, Yun Jian was stepping on Yu Hui's abdomen. The pressure was so great that Yu Hui couldn't breathe. She tilted her head slightly and raised her beautiful eyebrows. Then, she moved the knife closer to Yu Hui's neck and sneered. "Are you trying to deliver yourself to me so that I can kill you?" Her words were cold, and her eyes carried a luster that no one dared to underestimate. At this moment, Wang Haitian, Yu Hui and the rest who were on the ground felt fear from the bottom of their hearts. Before they could even make a move, they were already subdued by Yun Jian. What kind of speed was this? Chapter 1032. Yun Jian's words shocked everyone present, especially Yu Hui, who was being stepped on by Yun Jian. Although Yu Hui usually liked to act cool in front of girls, when he was being threatened with a knife and stepped on, he was scared out of his wits. Yu Hui swallowed a mouthful of saliva before he spoke in a trembling voice. Please take the knife away. All of this is not my fault. It's Yang Kaidai. She was the one who threatened me. If you want to kill, then kill her. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. Yu Hui was really scared. At the same time, he suddenly hated his girlfriend Yang Kaidai to the extreme for instigating all these things. If Yang Kaidai didn't say that he would take revenge for her as a man, he wouldn't have brought his brothers here to look for Yun Jian, and he wouldn't have been held by Yun Jian with a knife. Yu Hui thought that with more than 20 of his brothers, how could they not be able to deal with Yun Jian? Unless she wasn't an ordinary person. She was an assassin in the movies, an agent. But he was wrong. He was ridiculously wrong. She actually managed to subdue all of them by herself. Yu Hui. You actually. As Yu Hui's girlfriend, young Katie's heart trembled when she heard such words from Yu Hui's mouth. At a critical moment, her boyfriend actually said, "It's not my fault. If you want to kill, then kill her." Yang Kaidai couldn't breathe for a long time after hearing Yu Hui's heartless words. Are you done? Yun Jian raised her voice, raised her eyebrows and sneered. When Yun Jian shouted, Yu Hui was so scared that he immediately shut his mouth. Yun Jian smirked coldly and sneered at Yu Hui again. No matter what, you brought so many people to surround me today. This is the truth. If I don't give you a gift in return, it would be rude. As Yun Jian spoke, she increased the force on her feet. Yu Hui, who was being stepped on by Yun Jian, almost spat out a mouthful of white foam. I beg you, let me go. Yu Hui's eyes were only left with a pleading look. Only then did he realize Yun Jian's cruelty. Just as Yun Jian moved slightly, and the butterfly knife in her hand was getting closer and closer to Yu Hui's neck, no one dared to stop her. Over there! Damn it! The people from other schools want to gang up on our Yun Jian. Did they ask for our permission? Let's go, let's kill those people. How dare they bully Yun Jian? A loud voice was heard, and not long after, Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian led a group of people and rushed over from the corner. This group of people was no doubt the students from Longmen First High School. When they heard that there was a gang fight, and the target was Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian led a group of students who idolized Yun Jian to the core and rushed over like headless flies. Master! When Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest saw Yun Jian stepping on Yu Hui, and Wang Haitian and the rest who were kicked to the ground by Yun Jian getting up from the ground, he led a group of people and rushed towards Wang Haitian and the rest like a swarm of bees. Some of the boys from Longmen First High School, who came to help Yun Jian, had even picked up their backpacks and were ready to go home. When they heard that Team Monarch's slashing god was surrounded by a group of people, they threw their backpacks down and rushed over. How dare they touch their idol? They must have a death wish. Wang Haitian and the rest were dumbfounded. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Yun Jian's popularity in Longmen First High School was so high. Why? Just as Wang Haitian thought of this, one of them lifted Wang Haitian's head and punched him in the head. How dare you gang up on Team Monarch's slashing god? Go to hell! The person said as he punched Wang Haitian. While being punched, Wang Haitian and the rest clearly heard a few words. Team Monarch's slashing god? Yun Jian. Chapter 1033. When Wang Haitian and the rest heard that Yun Jian was Team Monarch's slashing god, their eyeballs nearly fell out of their sockets. Team Monarch's slashing god. She was now a legend in Longmen City, and even the entire Zhe province. Many of the boys in the school had even made slashing god their goal and idol. It was no exaggeration to say that slashing god was an existence that could be heard, but not touched to Wang Haitian and the rest. When Wang Haitian, Yu Hui, and the rest of them nearly fainted from the shock when they heard that such a legendary figure was the same person who had taken down all 20 of them single-handedly just now. They were Slashing Gods fans too. The group that Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian had brought along were ready to go home after school, but once they heard that something had happened to Yun Jian, all of them dropped their bags and ran over. They were even more aggressive now as they rushed up and subdued Wang Haitian, Yu Hui, Yang Kaidai, and the rest of the group. Yun Jian's foot that was stepping on Yu Hui loosened as well. She narrowed her eyes and did not need to do anything in the end. Zhang Xiaofeng was Yun Jian's junior brother, and this was a well-known fact in Longmini Junior High. Therefore, with Zhang Xiaofeng commanding, none of the boys who came to help Yun Jian were disgruntled. They rushed up one by one and pressed Wang Haitian, Yu Hui, and the rest to the ground with their advantage in numbers. Humph, master, they wanted to gang up on you. Today I, your son-in-law, will kill these idiots for you. As Zhang Xiaofeng spoke, he gestured at Longmin Junior High's classmates who came to help Yun Jian. Don't go soft. Give them a good beating. How dare they bully my master? They can forget about going back in peace. As Zhang Xiaofeng spoke, the boys from Longmin Junior High responded loudly. Wang Haitian, Yu Hui, and the rest who were initially aggressive were now the ones begging for mercy. Yun Jian raised a brow. Was she so popular in school now? The sight of Zhang Xiaofeng leading his classmates to help her made Yun Jian feel like she was being protected. The feeling made Yun Jian smile from the bottom of her heart. Wang Haitian, Yu Hui, Yang Kaidai, and the rest who had offended Yun Jian, the slashing god of Team Monarch, scrambled away when they had the chance. How would they dare seek revenge? Yun Jian was the slashing god of Team Monarch. Watching them run away, the boys from Longmini Junior High School, who came to help Yun Jian beat up Wang Haitian, cheered and ran to Yun Jian to worship her. It was as if they were meeting their idols, and the extravagance was indescribable. Where is it? These little bastards actually dare to fight in front of me. At this time, a teacher on duty heard about the group fight here, and ran over with a student who complained in an aggressive manner. When Teacher Zhou, who was on duty, saw the crowd surrounding Yun Jian, and could not contain their excitement, he rushed up with a stick and hit the male students of Longmini Junior High School, who admired Yun Jian one by one, gritting his teeth in resentment. You little brats! How dare you gang up on a female classmate? Ha! As he said that, the teacher on duty angrily knocked on each of the boys' heads. The boys present felt extremely wronged. Teacher Zhou, who was almost 50 years old and had a strong sense of justice, was so angry that he could barely breathe. Chapter 1034. Teacher Zhou on duty was a very righteous little old man. He was not even 50 years old, but his hair was already white. In order to cover up his white hair, he even dyed his hair stylishly black. At this moment, he was holding a small wooden stick in his hand. This wooden stick was originally broken off from the tree. When he came here, he heard that a group of male students were fighting here. He was simply furious, so he broke off a branch from the tree and ran over here aggressively. Today was his shift, and they actually dared to fight in front of the school gate. This group of little bastards. None of them knew how powerful he was as a male tiger. That's right. This teacher on duty was the teaching director of Longmin First High School. His surname was Zhang, and Director Zhang was usually very fierce. He was a very fierce little old man. Moreover, he liked to go to extremes, so the students in school gave him a nickname, Male Tiger. It meant that once Director Zhang caught something, he would not let it go no matter what. He had to find out who was right and who was wrong. Just like the tiger, he would not let go of the prey that he had set his eyes on. Therefore, the nickname Male Tiger was formed just like that. Director Zhang also knew that his classmates had given him this nickname. Not only was he not angry, as long as his classmates did not make any mistakes, he would even joke about the nickname that his classmates gave him. It could be said that Director Zhang was a teacher who was strict and could take jokes. He was a teacher who could play and joke with his classmates. Although Director Zhang was quite scary when he was fierce, his classmates still liked him very much. There was one thing that was very admirable about Director Zhang, and that was that he felt that he should protect the vulnerable. In school, girls were also considered one of the vulnerable groups by Director Zhang. After all, it was a fact that girls' physical strength was not as good as boys. Hence, when he saw a large group of boys surrounding Yun Jian, Director Zhang concluded without thinking that this was the rhythm of a large group of boys wanting to bully a weak girl. Hence, Director Zhang was so angry that he casually broke a branch and rushed over to hit the boys one by one. The result? When he angrily hit all the boys, this girl actually said, "It's not their fault. I was the one who started the fight?" Really? She was the one who started the gang fight? Director Zhang was stunned on the spot. He looked at Yun Jian in a daze, holding the small wooden stick in his hand. He looked like he couldn't believe it. Getting into a gang fight would be punished by the school. Yun Jian knew that as well. What's more, Zhang Xiaofeng had brought this group of people because of him. Yun Jian, on the other hand, had always been protective of her shortcomings. If someone respected her, she would return the favor tenfold. This was her principle. Where is he? What if they didn't bully you? Then that group of people, what about them? Director Zhang was not someone who could be easily fooled. He looked around and said to Yun Jian, "Little girl, if you get bullied by these guys, just tell me. I guarantee that they won't dare to bully you again." Director Zhang thought that Yun Jian was afraid of telling the truth, because she was bullied by the boys around her. So he opened his mouth to speak. However, Director Zhang had just opened his mouth when Yun Jian interrupted him. "I chased them away." As she said that, Yun Jian's red lips curled up into a smile. At the same time, she gently swung the butterfly knife. This butterfly knife was smoothly closed by her, and then placed into her trouser pocket. "What? Chased away by you?" Director Zhang obviously did not believe Yun Jian, and was about to retort when Yun Jian interrupted him. Just as he was about to say something, the voice of the student who was watching the show, but didn't participate in it, came from the side. This student was obviously not from Longmen First High School. Chapter 1035. The words of the student who spoke reached Director Zhang's ears without any hindrance. Director Zhang's expression changed from disbelief to shock and horror. What did the student just say? This girl, Yun Jian, whom he thought was being bullied by the boys, defeated more than 20 boys all by herself? How could such a miraculous thing happen to a female student? Director Zhang was completely stunned. However, at that moment, after the student who was watching the show spoke, another student followed suit. Haha, how could that group of people be her match? Didn't they say she's Team Monarch's slashing god? She's the slashing god. Even if there were a few hundred of them, they still wouldn't be a match for her, let alone those 20 or so people from before. She's from the military. It was already shocking enough for Director Zhang. But after the student who followed suit, Director Zhang was even more terrified. What? The Team Monarch's slashing god, who was the talk of the town recently, was actually the girl whom he thought was being bullied? Director Zhang was a genuine old urchin. He had heard of Team Monarch's slashing god before, but he did not know that she was in their school. Although the incident was spreading like wildfire in Longmen First High School, Director Zhang was unaware of it. Yun Jian curled her lips slightly. She was not afraid of being punished at all. She merely raised a brow and looked at Director Zhang. So this incident has nothing to do with them. Yun Jian seized the opportunity to speak again. When Yun Jian said that, the boys present were very touched. Could it be that Yun Jian wanted to shoulder all the responsibility alone? Although Yun Jian was the cause of the incident, everyone did make a move in the end. If they were caught in a gang fight by the teachers, they would be severely punished. So can we disperse now? Yun Jian's red lips curled up slightly as she spoke to Director Zhang again. As she spoke, her eyes flashed with a different color when she looked at Director Zhang. In 1999, there were not many cases of girls fighting. Girls in this era were very reserved, especially when it came to fighting with boys. Even in the current era, such cases were rare. Director Zhang had been a director for so many years, and had never encountered such an incident. The corners of Director Zhang's mouth twitched. Because of the shock just now and the fact that he was a little confused at the moment, he paused for a moment, and then said in a daze, "Huh? Oh, all right. Let's disperse. At that moment, Yin Jian's eyes were sizing up Director Zhang. No one noticed that Yin Jian was looking at Director Zhang, and even hypnotizing him. At that moment, hypnotism was the most effective. Looking at the dazed Director Zhang, everyone present was a little stunned. What? Based on Director Zhang's personality as the male tiger, shouldn't he fly into a rage and ask Yun Jian which class she was from? Shouldn't he be giving her marks at the registration counter? When Yun Jian heard that, she smirked and turned sideways. Just as she was about to wave Chen Xinyi, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian to leave with her, Director Zhang interrupted her. That classmate. Director Zhang spoke again. The students who were dumbfounded earlier had goosebumps all over again. What? Was Director Zhang going to settle scores with Yin Jian again? Classmate, be careful on your way home, okay? Unexpectedly, Director Zhang did not mention any punishment at all. The people standing around were all dumbfounded. Director Zhang had always been an impartial person. Why did he not punish Yin Jian today? He just let Yin Jian go. In the end, the students could not figure it out. Hence, they unanimously concluded that it was because Yun Jian was Team Monarch's slashing god. Chapter 1036. At this moment, Yun Jian had already left with Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Everyone was left standing in their original positions. Yun Jian had just left with Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi and Zhang Jian. They were walking on the side of a busy road. Zhang Xiaofeng couldn't wait to ask Yun Jian excitedly, "Master, did you just use hypnotism?" Zhang Xiaofeng actually saw through it. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, but she wasn't surprised. Back then, Yun Jian had used hypnotism in front of Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi and Ling Yichen. Later on, Lu Haozi even discovered it. At that time, Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi didn't ask her what was going on. But Yun Jian could feel that Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Xinyi were actually very interested in this matter. Yun Jian didn't intend to hide it from Zhang Xiaofeng. She tilted her head slightly and glanced at Zhang Xiaofeng, then nodded. She had indeed used hypnosis on Director Zhang just now to make him muddle-headed and forget that he had been in a group fight with others. After all, what happened just now wasn't her fault. It was Wang Haitian and Yu Hui who brought people to find her. Yun Jian didn't want the school to make it seem like a big deal because of what happened just now. She didn't want to be criticized and punished in front of the entire school. She wasn't afraid of being punished, but she simply didn't want trouble. Grandmaster, you actually know the legendary hypnotism. Although Zhang Jian was chubby and strong, he reacted quickly. When he spoke, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Zhang Jian didn't know that Yin Jian knew hypnotism. You brat, my master knows a lot of things. You're making a big fuss. Embarrassing. Zhang Xiaofeng rebuked Zhang Jian, then chuckled. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't beg Yin Jian to teach him hypnotism, because he knew that Yin Jian would teach him everything she could. Of course, she knew what she couldn't teach or couldn't teach. It was because of Zhang Xiaofeng's personality that Yin Jian made an exception to accept him as her disciple. Finally, they parted ways at the intersection. Time passed in the blink of an eye. After May Day, Yun Jian returned to her normal life. The beginning of May passed, Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding day. On May 21st, 1999, Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding. Although it was Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's second marriage, it was the first time they felt the excitement before their wedding. In the past, no matter if it was when Qin Yiru and Yun Gang were forced to marry, or when Gu Junjian was forced to marry Hua Yin, they didn't feel this way. At that time, they felt as if someone who had nothing to do with them had gotten married. However, a few days before the wedding, Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian were extremely nervous. Seeing that the wedding day was approaching, Gu Junjian had already booked a hotel. The wedding would be held at the hotel on May 18, 1999. There were 3 days before the wedding. Qin Yiru was staying at home. Every day felt like a year. On one hand, She was looking forward to her wedding with Gu Junjian, because she knew that Gu Junjian was sincere to her. On the other hand, she was a little scared. After a failed marriage, all women would have the same fear of marriage as Qin Yiru. Even if they hadn't experienced their second marriage, many women would have the same fear before marriage. They were afraid that the man would treat them badly. These days, Yun Jian asked for leave and stayed at home to accompany Qin Yiru. Chapter 1037. Xiao Jian. There are still 3 days before the wedding. My heart can't stop pounding. I wonder if the days ahead will be comfortable after marrying your Uncle Gu. Qin Yiru held Yun Jian's hand as her heart raced. Normal women generally had a slight premarital phobia, but some people didn't show it so obviously. Before the wedding, most people would have some concerns and more or less felt a sense of fear from the bottom of their hearts. In serious cases, they would even start to dread getting married. Qin Yiru had experienced a failed marriage, so it was normal for her to have such thoughts now. Mom, Uncle Gu is sincere to you. You don't have to worry about anything now. What you should do the most is to have a good sleep. I'll take care of everything else. Yun Jian patted Qin Yiru's palm comfortingly and pressed her lips into a faint smile. I've sent out all the invitations. Mom, rest well now and wait for the 21st of May to put on your beautiful wedding gown. Yun Jian had settled everything. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Qin Yiru's uneasiness calmed down instantly. Yiru, Officer Gu is a good man. Trust my judgment. Dong Wan, who had heard Qin Yiru and Yun Jian's conversation, walked in from the door. Dong Wan was a high-ranking official and was busy with work. Due to Qin Yiru's impending wedding, she had put aside everything she was busy with and applied for a week's leave, planning to accompany Qin Yiru through the wedding. When Qin Yiru had dropped out of high school, she could not do anything for Qin Yiru. Now that Qin Yiru had finally found her happiness, as a friend, she should stay by her side. It was not too late to make up for what she did not have the chance to do in the past. This time, she wanted her best friend, who had accompanied her since she was a teenager to her middle age, to get married in a grand manner. However, why was her Yiru getting married again? She was not marrying a bastard like Yun Gang either. She could not bear to part with her. Dong Wan swallowed the jealousy in her heart and walked over to hug Qin Yiru. Yiru, if you dare to be unhappy, I promise I'll break Gu Yunjian's legs. After decades, Dong Wan finally expressed her thoughts. Although her words were a little extreme, Qin Yiru knew that Dong Wan would not really break Gu Yunjian's legs. She was just trying to make herself happy in another way. Even if the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, there would always be such a person behind you, silently protecting you. She is not your relative, nor is she your biological parent, but she cares for you from the bottom of her heart. They had been good sisters for decades and had been friends for a lifetime. This was a friendship that could be brought to the grave. Looking at Dong Wan and Qin Yiru, Yun Jian smiled as well. It was then that Yun Jian's phone rang. A call at this time was simply ruining the atmosphere. Yun Jian hung up the call and walked out of the house. On her way out, she closed the door behind her. Then, she took out her phone again and dialed the number. When she called back, Yun Jian was already walking down the stairs in her flats. When she was halfway down the stairs, the call was picked up. Sister Jian, it's Diane. We're in Longmen City. Where are you? The voice of Diane, the leader of the Kosha mercenaries' intelligence team, came from the other end of the phone. Chapter 1038. Yun Jian had sent out quite a number of invitations in the name of Kosha mercenaries. With Gu Sha mercenaries' identity, how could these people not come when they had sent out invitations to influential figures in the world? Kosha mercenaries. Kosha mercenaries were in existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with an Hun group. Sending out invitations in the name of Kosha mercenaries to influential figures in the world was not a question of whether they would come. Even if they were not invited, the influential figures and influential figures in the world would rush to Longmen City at the speed of a rocket when they heard about it. If someone were to ask around, they would know that the large hotels and five-star hotels in Longmen City were fully booked. Generally, those who were qualified to stay in a five-star hotel were usually the rich and wealthy. The average citizen did not have the financial ability or the need to choose to stay in expensive five-star hotels. Therefore, five-star hotels would usually have leftover rooms. These days, however, these five-star hotels were not only fully booked, but there were also many foreigners. Yun Jian was well aware of this. There were already people who rushed to Longmen City in case she was late for the invitations she sent out. It was the first time Dai Annie and the others had come to Longmen City, so when Yun Jian received the call, she went back to her room to change into a clean white shirt and slim-fit pants before she went out. Ce was coming back from an Hun group the next day. Ce planned to take a long break after she was done with her work in the organization. Yun Jian had Dai Annie and the others go to Longmen City's East Bus Terminal while she took the bus there. Dai Annie and the others had rushed over from the headquarters of Kosha mercenaries by bus as well. When Yun Jian saw Dai Annie and the others, they were still standing at Longmen City's East Bus Terminal. There were only 3 of them on this trip. The one who stood at the front was a woman in her 20s with long black hair. She was beautiful and delicate. She was Dai Annie. Diani was a ZY mixed blood. She had a head of beautiful black hair and a pair of gray eyes. She was very delicate and beautiful. The moment they saw Yun Jian, Dai Annie and the other 2 girls ran over. Standing at the front, Dai Annie was the first to give Yun Jian a big hug. Sister Jian. Kosha Mercenaries was divided into many departments, and 3 of them were the most important. These 3 departments were the intelligence team, the assassination team, and the investigation team. Dai Annie was the head of the intelligence team. As for the woman and man beside Dai Annie, they were the assassination team's leader, Gui Yan, and the investigation team leader, Gui Lian. The leader of the assassination team, Gui Yan, was a woman, while the leader of the investigation team, Gui Lian, was a man. Dai Annie, Gui Yan, and Gui Lian were the leaders of Kosha Mercenaries' intelligence team, assassination team, and investigation team respectively. They were one of the important high-ranking members in the hierarchy of Kosha Mercenaries. Back in Kosha Mercenaries, Gui Yan and Gui Lian had met Yun Jian as well, so both of them greeted Yun Jian as Sister Jian. Right, Sister Jian, Elder Snake. Lizard and the others will only arrive in Longmen City in 2 days. Dai Annie told Yun Jian as she recalled Snake. Lizard's instruction. Yun Jian pressed her lips together before curling her lips into a smile and said after a beat, "I know. Yunju's sister?" At this moment, a surprised voice was heard. Yun Jian raised a brow when she heard the voice. Just as she turned around, she saw Miss Liu, who had just alighted from a city bus and was greeting her. Miss Liu was Xiao Yunju's homeroom teacher in school, and the one who had slandered Xiao Yunju back then. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.